boyfriend, or was she framed? Quite the mystery in this case. You know, I've heard about this case a couple months back, and Karen Reed is on trial today. It is opening statements. The state says that she got an argument with her boyfriend and she dropped him off at friend's house. And not only did she drop him off at a friend's house, but she allegedly hit him with the car and then drove off. And that's what caused him to die out there in the snow. Apparently, the next day, you know, she went home, she slept, and she's like, oh, geez, my boyfriend isn't here. I wonder where he is. So apparently she goes back to the house, and her and I think her two friends found her boyfriend in the snow, dead body out there. However, her defense story is quite an interesting one. And this is why I was initially interested in this case, because I was like, this shit is like, it's wild, it's crazy. Her defense is that, well, I dropped off my boyfriend at the friend's house. Something must have went down because my boyfriend was found with, I think they said that he had like bite marks or something, like scratch marks on him. Looks like maybe a dog attacked him and maybe some sort of like blunt force trauma. So she's accusing of the people in that house of murdering her boyfriend. Maybe the dog too. I don't know. Quite a crazy thing that's going on right now. We're going to listen to opening statements, and I hope you guys are doing well. Hello, hello. Also, we have some new developments in the Suzanne Morphew case. That's a case that not a lot of people are really talking about, but I did do a true crime story time about that case. Definitely check that video out because her murder is still an unsolved murder. She was murdered over a couple years ago, and I think she's recently celebrating should be her birthday right about now. But, also her birthday, and then also I think the anniversary of her death. So her body was found a couple months back, and they finally released the autopsy report. And you know what? The autopsy report kind of aligns with the state's theory. However, that case is so screwed up, unfortunately, because the state prosecutor that was involved and some other, I don't know, like the judges were involved. It's like a whole mess with like a bunch of people that you're just like, oh my God, this is such a freaking headache. Taxi! Oh my God, Taxi, thank you so much for the $5.99. I appreciate it. I always get euros and pounds mixed up. I think that's the euro. Taxi, thank you so much. Hi, y'all. Have a nice week. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate that. I hope you guys are doing well. Now, I'm excited for the Karen Reed trial because I just popped in for a little bit. One, audio is great. We love good audio, but not only that, the cameras are pretty freaking good as well. We're getting a lot of different camera angles in here, and the quality looks really good. Hi, Mine Unmute. How are you doing today? Hello, hello. Oh, yes, I'm here. I know. I did not start earlier, but you know what? I'm here. Okay, better late than never. Hi, lady. How are you doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. Let's get started with opening statements. As always, it usually always starts with the state's opening statement, and the defense is going to go out there. And we have two diametrically opposite theories out there. So this is why I'm really interested in this case, because, you know, I've heard of some evidence out there here and there, and then people's interpretations of some of the evidence, and the internet just seems like maybe they're divided. I don't know, or maybe it's because there are Karen Reed supporters out there. Like there was some drama with one of her number one supporters, and I think he was arrested recently for like witness intimidation or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's been a lot of crazy stuff going on with this case, but we're here. Let's check it out, and let's sort all this. The thumbnail looks like the lady's grabbing your chin like, shh, look at me. Wait, does it, Stephanie? What does my thumbnail look like? Hold on. Does it look like that? We are like different skin tones. Completely different skin tones. I guess it could from like a far away angle. It kind of looks like I'm choking myself, actually. I don't know. All right, y'all. But I hope you guys are doing great. Lemon, Morton, Kiki. Yeah, I think a lot of us are very, very curious about this case. Now, I will say this, though. I am going to be going to Mexico this week. So we won't be able to cover the entirety of the trial, but I'm definitely here for, I don't know. I'm probably going to be listening to it on my own, and then maybe do some recaps, or, you know, I don't know. I'm not really quite sure what we're going to do with this one, but I've been following this one and then loosely following the Daybell trial as well. I did want to listen to Lori Vallow's son. He went up there and testified during the Chad Daybell trial. So kind of want to hear from him, and I wanted to watch it with you guys. I think I watched like the beginning, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it with my stream. Hi, Joe. How are you doing today? Hello, hello. How's it going? Oh, the Hubs is back from Chad. He got the goods. Oh, that's the best part, when someone's coming back from a different country and they bring back the goods. All right, y'all. Let's start with the Karen Reed trial. It's day one. They did say this trial might last 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks. And, sometimes it's even longer depending on if there's some delays or sometimes you never know, with trial stuff, sometimes there's things going on with the jury. Sometimes it's the state or maybe the defense will accidentally introduce some information that wasn't supposed to initially be introduced, and then it makes the case even longer. I think that's what happened to the Murdoch trial. I think initially it was supposed to be a couple weeks, but then it got longer because of the roadside shooting. Was that initially not supposed to be introduced, but it was ended up being introduced or something? The financial stuff, the Cousin Eddie. I don't know. The Murdoch stuff was wild. Okay, sorry, but I'm just excited for this. All right, y'all. Like I said, audio looks good, video looks good, and I am super excited. Oh, let me capture the right screen. Why is it capturing this one? Give me a second. I had the right screen captured. YouTube Studio. Oh, it's bugging out. Okay. There we go. All right, y'all. Let's do this. I hope you guys are doing well. We are just getting started. Huh? There's a 5-minute delay. I mean, honestly, if there is a delay, that's usually set by the streamer. So it's possible, a lot of the trial stuff, they do the Omega delays because just in case you're not supposed to show something. I wonder if there's a way for them to. No, I don't think so, actually. If it's already shown, it's already shown. They're kind of screwed for. I'm not really quite sure. Yes, the weather must be great. I don't know. I just hope it's not going to be too humid, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, y'all. Guys, get your waters ready. I don't know if it's cold over there or warm. Get all cozy up and let's watch the Karen Reed trial. Let's go.
And that's what we ask of you. So with that, it's time for opening statements, and whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, let me get my notes up too.
And I ask only that you keep your voice up, please.
Do my best, Your Honor. Good morning. So as Your Honor was telling you, this is one of the 2 opportunities that I will get.
Yo, what happened to his microphone? Why is the judge's microphone so loud? Okay, I'm going to boost this man up a little bit because his microphone is not as great as the judge.
To address you. The first of which right now, essentially what I'm going to attempt to do, and I know you've heard over the course of the impoundment process a number of different witnesses that were listed out as far as potential witnesses in this case.
Wait, why is he so low now? What the fudge? Okay, I'm going to boost the audio. Let me know if I should make it louder.
So what my intent here is to provide as much of a roadmap as I can through those waters and help you to navigate sort of who these people are and what relation they have to this case. We start with John O'Keefe. John O'Keefe grew up in Braintree. He was 46 years old when he passed. He was the son of...
Oh, this is the victim's mother? Oh, it must be so tough to have to go there and then your child's dead. Also, this story gets even more wild because John O'Keefe was a police officer, and the people in that house, I think they were either coworkers or they have family that's also in law enforcement. So this is the whole accusation of just not a family cover up, but also a law enforcement cover up. So Karen Reed's her defense, there are a lot of accusations out there and some very hefty, serious ones. Watch her face during prosecutors. I could just tell she's just gonna be really upset the entire time. Hi, Daniela.
John O'Keefe Jr. and Margaret or Peggy O'Keefe. He was a brother to Paul O'Keefe and to his sister Kristen Furbush. Kristen was married, and so John's brother-in-law was a man named Stephen Furbush, and they had 2 children who were very young in 2013. Now, in 2013, Kristen, unfortunately, tragically, passed away, succumbing to cancer in November of 2013. Within months of that, Mr. O'Keefe's brother-in-law and Kristen's husband, Stephen, passed away as well. Now, initially, when John O'Keefe's sister passed away, sort of the initial plan for that situation was that John O'Keefe was going to move in with Stephen Furbush and kids.
They had Karen read merch in the courtroom. Dude, I heard about her supporters. She's got some strong supporters out there. And apparently one of them was arrested and charged with like witness intimidation or something like that a couple months back. I think this is like back in was it like December or something?
And assist as far as raising us. And then when Stephen passed away a few months after his wife, before those plans could be final, John O'Keefe then moved in with his niece and nephew and assumed the parental role and assumed legal guardianship with respect to both of those children. Now, he was assisted in this by a great number of people within the town of Canton where the Furrbushes lived and where John moved into the home with the two children there. There were other parents within the neighborhood, other parents within the children's age group. You'll hear from a number of them over the course of this trial, but they include Mrs. Carrie Roberts and Mrs. Jennifer McKay. They helped Mr. O'Keefe out during those initial stages and during the time that he assumed this role. He also got help from his work. John O'Keefe was a proud member of the Boston Police Department, had been for many years. He had been a patrolman prior to moving in with the children and assuming this sort of role. Boston Police Department helped him greatly as far as positioning him to more of a desk role.
Oh, I think it's the judge that needs to turn off her microphone or something. I don't know if it's the judge because her microphone was really loud. I think she might be bringing the microphone, or someone is bringing the microphone right now.
Working in the sex offender unit with more regular hours to sort of assimilate himself to this new life and this new role that he assumes with his children. Initially, John O'Keefe lived in the house with the kids. However, in 2018, they moved into a new home, sort of a new home that they could have as their own. That home is located also within the town of Canton, sort of on the Stoughton side of Canton at One Meadows Avenue. John O'Keefe raised these children, assuming guardianship for them for about 8 years. His niece, who was the elder of the two, was about 14 at the time that John O'Keefe died, and his nephew was about 11 years old at the time that John O'Keefe died. January 28th, 2022 was a relatively typical day. It was a Friday going into a Saturday of January 29th. Sort of typical in the sense of most sort of suburban parents. There were a lot of activities, weekend sports, practices, games, things of that nature that the O'Keefe and Furbush family had to look forward to. One little difference when it came to that particular day of January 28th and the 29th is the weather. So there had been predicted, and there was going to be a snowstorm, an insignificant one. A blizzard essentially was coming in overnight that Friday into Saturday, lasting through most of the day on Saturday the 29th. And as a result of that, most of those sort of typical, weekend routine activities that would keep most people, including those within the town, Canton busy, have been canceled ahead of time. Everybody knew what was coming. Everybody knew essentially you weren't going to leave your house all that much.
This is actually a very interesting courtroom layout. I've never seen it like this before. So it seems like, is everyone facing this way? But then for some reason, the defense and their attorneys are facing that way. Like, I don't know. This is such an interesting layout that I'm looking at right here. Also, this snowstorm thing is pretty important because they are saying that, well, Karen's defense team, they're saying that something happened in the house, either they beat him up, they murdered him or something, and then they just threw his dead body outside in the street in the snow. And they also said that the people that were in the house apparently Googled how long does it take for a body, or it was something about like how long does it take to die in the snow or in the cold or something like that. But I think the state said that that search actually happened after the body was found. I don't know.
Now, also on January 28th, Mr. O'Keefe had received some news in respect to his niece. So his niece and her best friend were in 8th grade at the time, going to high school in the fall of 2022. They both applied to a private school called Bishop, and they both found out on the 28th that they had been accepted to that school. So the friend, as well as her father, a gentleman by the name of Michael Camerano, who's both he and his wife, Catherine Camerano, were friendly with John O'Keefe. They had children around the same ages as both John's niece and his nephew. And they had come over to their house on Meadows Ave that evening to celebrate the girls getting into that school. The nephew of John, the 11-year-old, was sleeping over a friend's house that night. He left that home sometime around 7 p.m. or so, got picked up and went to sleep over at his friend's house. John O'Keefe and Michael Camerano then decided to travel out to a local establishment on Washington Street called C.F. McCarthy's Bar and Restaurant. You're going to hear testimony, and you're going to see surveillance video, and you're going to see receipts and all kinds of things from a variety of different establishments, all sort of located within Camden Center along that strip in Washington Street. Now, they get Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Camerano leave the girls at home. They then go to see if McCarthy is arriving there sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. They eventually cajole another friend of theirs, Mr. Kurt Roberts, to come out to the bar and join them as well. And there's some other people.
Cajole is like when you're like convincing someone, right?
That are located within the bar, including a Mr. James Sullivan, who we hear from, who was present at the bar that night as well. Eventually, the defendant, Karen Reed, joins them at this establishment, C.F. McCarthy's, sometime just before 9 p.m. Now, John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had met sometime in 2004. They had dated briefly during that time and reconnected sometime around March of 2020, around the time of the COVID-19 sort of pandemic shutdown. They had started dating around that time period, or reconnected during that time period, and the defendant had stayed at the house in Canton several nights a week. She had helped out with the children. In the month or so leading up to Mr. O'Keefe's death,
Hey, Catherine.
the relationship soured. You will see text messages between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed to that effect. You will hear testimony from the children, from John's niece and nephew, in regard to things they observed within that relationship.
I think Karen Reed was trying to accuse her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, the victim, of like infidelity or something.
And you'll hear testimony from other individuals as far as their observations or things that they heard. Turning to January 29th.
They fixed their microphone. Yay! They got rid of like the background noise. Okay, someone just needed to mute their microphone back there. That's what it was, I'm pretty sure.
2022. Just after 6 a.m., the Canton Police Department receives a 911 call from a woman reporting a male party, subsequently identified as John O'Keefe, found in the snow outside residence at 34 Fairview Road. At the time, as I mentioned, blizzards that had been predicted was occurring, heavy snow, temperatures in the teens, wind bustling around. Officer Stephen Saraf and Officer Stephen Mullaney of the Canton Police were dispatched along with Canton Fire and EMS, and you'll hear from them in regard to their response and what they observed on scene. In particular, with Officer Saraf, you'll have as an exhibit, I anticipate, a cruiser camera video from his cruiser detailing or memorializing sort of his response in the darkness, in the blizzard type conditions as he's driving from the Canton Police Station, where he was located when he received the call, to 34 Fairview Road. When they arrived there, they observed three individuals, three females, sort of off to the left side of the property. And when I say the left side of the property, I mean if you're standing out in the street facing 34 Fairview Road, off to the left side of the property, there's a flagpole, there's a fire hydrant, there's some bushes. That is where Mr. O'Keefe is located. To the right side of the property is sort of the driveway and the mailbox, other things that you'll become familiar with through photographic evidence and other means through the course of this trial.
Okay, it must be
The
important.
three females that the officers observed there were then identified as the defendant, Karen Reed, Mrs. Jennifer McCabe, who had received a phone call earlier in the morning from the defendant, as well as Mrs. Kerry Roberts, who had also received a phone call early that morning from the defendant. The several firefighters from the Canton Fire Department you'll hear from in regard to their observations of injuries, abrasions, and lacerations to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe. You'll hear their testimony in regard to swelling of his eyes and other injuries that he observed. They observed redness from the cold that he had.
Oh, you know what? Do you guys know what car Karen Reed was driving? Was she driving in an SUV? Something that like sits a little bit higher. Hey, Richie, Sal, Christine, how are you doing today? Catherine, what's up? What's going on?
Lying out in for some time. You'll hear the testimony from these firefighters, Timothy Nuttall, Anthony Flamati, Matthew Kelly, Francis Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and Greg Woodbury. And at least from three of those firefighters, you'll hear testimony
It was a black SUV. Okay.
anticipates detailing statements that the defendant made to them when they had asked about the origination of some of those injuries.
Because initially I was like, I don't know how she would hit it in a way where I think they said like he might have injuries to his head, but SUV would totally make sense then.
And stated repeatedly, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Oh, she said that?
When they had asked about the origination of some of those injuries. And stated repeatedly, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Mr. O'Keefe was then taken from the front lawn onto what they call a scoop stretcher. As he's doing that, I anticipate you'll hear Ms. Roberts' testimony that
So
despite
she tells people that responded there, like law enforcement, I guess, I hit him. I wonder if that's on body cam footage. Also, I wonder if she's now retrospectively changing her story and saying like, oh, when I said I hit him, I didn't mean I hit him with my car. I just meant like I physically hit him with my hand. I don't know.
the 6 inches of snow approximately that was on top of Mr. O'Keefe's body and the snow throughout the roadway, front yard, everywhere around where he was, there was grass underneath Mr. O'Keefe, where his cell phone was located underneath his body as he lay on that front lawn.
Oh.
He was then transported by firefighters Kelly, Flamati, and Nuttall, as well as the ambulance being driven by firefighter McLaughlin to the Good Samaritan Medical Center. Once there were some observations, and you'll hear testimony from Dr. Justin Rice from that facility as far as observations consistent with what I anticipate you'll hear from those firefighters. But then there is a certain warming procedure that they go through trying to bring his body temperature up. Because when Mr. O'Keefe arrives at the Good Samaritan Medical Center, his body temperature is 80.
Oh.
And after those resuscitative efforts prove unsuccessful, Mr. O'Keefe is eventually pronounced by Dr. Rice at approximately 7:50. Shortly after that, when the defendant is then being driven away from the scene by Ms. Roberts, who is now going to go pick up Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's parents in Braintree, and then bring them to the Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton, the defendant makes some statements of self-harm. As a result of that, she's then transported to the Good Samaritan Medical Center as well by two firefighters named Daniel Whitley and Jason Becker. And amongst the statements that they gained from the defendant as they're having a conversation with her in regard to that, in regard to her treatment and diagnosis, she indicates that the last that she saw Mr. O'Keefe, they had gotten into an argument before he had gotten out of the car in front of Fairview Road. Now, you'll also hear testimony from some...
So the last time she saw him, they got in an argument and started get out of the car. They had gotten into an argument before...
that she saw Mr. O'Keefe. They had gotten into an argument before he had gotten out of the car in front of Fairview Road. Now, you'll also hear testimony from some of the other first responding officers from the Canton Police
Hey, Kyra, how are you doing today?
Department, including Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, Sergeant Sean Good, and Sergeant Michael Lenk, in regard to their initial response, their observations, people that they spoke to, where they went, and their ability to recover within these blizzard conditions that are still ongoing, certain pieces of evidence that they located in around the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. You'll also hear from Lieutenant Charles Ray of the Canton Police Department, who was tasked with, at this point in time, the Canton Police were unaware that the nephew was over at sleepover. They weren't aware that Mr. Camerano had come over to the residence on Meadows Ave and picked up the niece and bringing her back to his house, as she was left unattended when the defendant left to go looking for Mr. O'Keefe. So unaware of that, they go do a well-being check at approximately 8:22 in the morning. And they also have cruiser camera video attached to their cruiser. You'll see that video of, and when they pull into the driveway at Meadows Ave, approximately 8:22 in the morning, they pull in directly behind where eventually you'll hear Ms. McCabe left the defendant's vehicle after driving it from her house to Meadows Ave in search of Mr. O'Keefe. And you'll have that footage, and you'll be able to see the back of the defendant's vehicle, specifically the right rear taillight of that vehicle. Now, you'll also hear testimony, as I mentioned, from the Cameranos, from Mr. Roberts, from Mr. Sullivan. They were all present with the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe at C.F. McCarthy's. You'll hear testimony from a number of other individuals who were at the Waterfall. The Waterfall is a bar located across the street, essentially.
Hey, Reese, how are you doing today? Oh, man, too bad there's no, like, security camera footage or ring camera footage in the outside of the house or something.
From C.F. McCarthy's on Washington Street in Canton Center, and somewhere that Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant went after leaving C.F. McCarthy's at approximately 11 p.m. Now, from that establishment, you'll hear from Rebecca Traers, who was working as a bartender at the Waterfall that evening. You'll hear from a couple named Nicholas and Karina Polakaitis, who were friends of friends, who had known Mr. O'Keefe through their daughter around the same age as Mr. O'Keefe. Mrs. Polakaitis had some conversation with the defendant that evening, as well as herself and Mrs. McCabe at the Waterfall. She left around the same time as they did. She parked on Washington Street around the same area as Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed did, specifically in Ms. Reed's car. And she observed Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant walking toward the defendant's vehicle, and specifically the defendant walking towards the driver's side of it. Now, you'll hear testimony from a Christopher and Julie Albert, who were people who were at one point neighbors of Mr. O'Keefe. They knew him well from being neighbors of him. Christopher Albert owns a pizza shop, also located within that Cannon Center area. Mr. O'Keefe, earlier in the day of the 28th, had been into that pizza shop along with his nephew to get his nephew a slice. Christopher Albert and Mr. O'Keefe had some conversation regarding what they were doing that night. And
Oh, yes. Yeah, we do true crime and video games here. Mm-hmm.
Christopher Albert and Mr. O'Keefe had some conversation regarding what they were doing that night, and it's Christopher Albert who actually texts Mr. O'Keefe and indicates that they're over at the waterfall and that he should come over shortly before Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant make their way from C.F. McCarthy's over.
I wish he had his own microphone right here. I think the audio that's getting picked up is just like the courtroom mic. That's why it's kind of like blah, 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 but no. But I think when the witnesses go on the stand, I think they have their own microphone, so it sounds like really good. Yeah, it's like the microphone thing. You need to have a microphone in someone's like at someone's mouth. That way you can like really listen to them. Otherwise, it sounds a little bit like warbler.
Now, Christopher Albert left directly from the waterfall and went.
Also, the hard part about this is that there are so many different people involved that you kind of get lost in all the different names. So it's like a lot of people are keeping track of like, okay, Karen Reed, John O'Keefe. But then when he's talking about like other family members and all that stuff, that's when it's just like, okay, this is a lot of people. It's a general overview. I feel like it would help to have like I don't know, some sort of like maybe a PowerPoint and maybe have the pictures of like people and they're like the family tree, because there is like a family tree here. There's like the John O'Keefe family tree, and then there's also like the friends, and then there's also the family tree of the people that are being accused of, framing Karen Reed. It gets pretty complicated. Yeah. There needs to be a presentation, and then like you need to have like a little wand or something to point who's who and who he's talking about. But we're kind of just getting an overview.
At home, lives sort of walking distance away from them. His wife, Julie Albert, had left earlier in the evening. There was a band playing at the waterfall that night. Julie Albert started to get a migraine, and she left.
Yeah, it was getting a little bit convoluted. So this is at normal speed. Usually when I listen to opening statements, we listen at like 1.5, 1.25. But I was like, nah, this is this is a normal speed opening statement.
Included within that group, and sort of how they came to the waterfall, the Albert family in particular, Julie Albert went there along with her sister-in-law, Nicole Albert, as well as her niece, Caitlin Albert, her niece's boyfriend, and Mr. Tristan Morris, and they had had dinner at the waterfall earlier in that evening. Now, Nicole Albert lives at 34 Fairview Road. She has a husband named Brian Albert, who's also...
Okay, now we're getting into the family that framed Karen Reed. That's what the defense is alleging.
Nicole Albert lives at 34 Fairview Road. She has a husband named Brian Albert, who's also a Boston police officer. Brian Albert had gone with a friend of his, who's also in law enforcement, a man named Brian Higgins. And they had gone separately, but had come home together from a funeral for a fallen police officer in New York City. They came home early to sort of beat the weather, and eventually they meet up with Brian Albert's family at the waterfall. Now, Tristan Morris, who was Caitlin Albert's boyfriend, had left the waterfall at some point in the evening. He then returns later to the residence on Fairview Road and picks up Caitlin Albert, brings him home. All of this is in relation to Brian Albert and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., whose birthday was coming up the following day, the day of the snowstorm on the 29th. So he had been back at the house at 34 Fairview while his family was out at the waterfall. He had a number of friends that had come over that evening to celebrate his birthday with him. Now, among those friends was two individuals named Sarah Levinson and Julie Daybell, and they were at the residence at 34 Fairview for a good portion. Now, those individuals from the waterfall that leave and then come to 34 Fairview, they do so sometime shortly after midnight. Shortly after midnight is when it starts to snow. Flurries are starting to come down. Snow was starting to stick to some degree to the road, to the front lawn, to the grassy areas around the town.
This is my understanding. So Karen Reed, so like basically they were like celebrating for John O'Keefe's niece and like a friend got into a private school, and I think they were like kind of all celebrating that night. But John O'Keefe and like his friends, I think they went to the bar. Karen Reed joins them afterwards, and they're all kind of hanging out at this bar, right? And then the other couple that they were hanging out with was like, hey, let's go back to my sister's house and let's go get some drinks there. Let's just hang out there. So they like, I don't know if they went bar hopping and then they went to the sister's house, but they eventually all left and headed towards the sister's house. And that's when Karen Reed, I guess, got an argument with John O'Keefe. So they're arguing in the car, and they're supposed to meet up their couple friends, who's like, it's like the sister's house. So that's all I'm getting right now. But within that house, there's like, there's like mom, dad, and the son is also celebrating his birthday there. He's celebrating, I don't know, it was like 18th birthday. I don't know if he mentioned that, but he's celebrating his birthday there. And he has like some two friends that are also there. So we have just more witnesses, more witnesses. Okay.
Now,
also, I think it's really important that he mentions when the snow starts. So apparently it was a blizzard. It was really cold. Lots of snow came down. But what he mentioned earlier in his opening statement was that John O'Keefe's body had 6 inches of snow on top of him. Underneath him was just grass and a cell phone that his body was just on top of. So I think it's really important to figure out, okay, did Karen drop off the boyfriend? And this is when it was about to snow. And then she hits him, he lands into the ground, and then he dies. Or he's like injured, he can't get up, and he kind of just like freezes to death, right? Or did he actually go inside the house? It's already snowing. He's inside the house. Something went down where a bunch of people turn against him. They beat the shit out of him or whatever. The dog attacks him, and then they just discard his body in front of their house. Because I think that part's really important because, if let's say he was there for a couple of hours and then they toss him out, well, wouldn't there be a couple of inches of snow beneath him? How fast was it snowing? Was the snow like, was it accruing or was it like melting as it went? It seems like there was like a good amount of snow and it was like cold enough for the snow to actually stick and to continue piling on. So I think that's why he keeps mentioning like, okay, when the snow started and then like the body and all that stuff. But yeah, his tone is a little bit, I feel like he could have started this with a banger.
from that group, the group that goes back is obviously Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, as they live there. Caitlin Albert, because it's her parents and her boyfriend is picking her up, as well as Jennifer McCabe, who is Nicole Albert's sister, and her husband, Matthew.
And I think Jennifer McCabe, oh God, I should just draw a family tree for this one. I think Jennifer McCabe was the one who was hanging out with John O'Keefe and Karen O'Keefe at the bar. She's the sister. Hold on.
There, Caitlin Albert, around the town. Now, from that group, the group that goes back is obviously Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, as they live there. Caitlin Albert.
Brian Albert, Nicole Albert go back to the house, okay, because they live there. Oh, you know what? I think I can find hold on a second. The Karen Reed trial family tree. I feel like we went over this in a family tree before in a previous stream. Oh, Court TV, I love you. Oh, we got the Court TV graphic here. Okay, so here's Court TV. These are the people that live in the house. So we have Brian and Nicole Albert, who are these two right here. I don't know how to make this bigger. Plus, like that. Oh no, that made it worse. Okay, so Brian, Nicole Albert, they live in the house, okay? They have 2 kids. Now, Brian Albert Jr., it was his birthday. He was celebrating his birthday there. He had some friends over at the house celebrating the birthday. So we have more witnesses, okay? So now outside of the house, we have Jennifer McCabe and Matt McCabe. I believe those were the couple that was a couple that was hanging out with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe at the bar. So they're at the bar drinking, and then Jennifer's like, hey, let's go to my sister's house. Let's go get some drinks there. I don't know. Was Brian and Nicole already there? Maybe. Because I think he said they went from Waterfall, which I think is a bar, and went back to the house. So it seems like they're all hanging out, and then they all go back to the house. All right. So we'll keep referring to this chart right here. They should have hit up Court TV for a chart, man.
Albert, because it's her parents and her boyfriend is picking her up, as well as Jennifer McCabe, who is Nicole Albert's sister, and her husband, Matthew. They go back to that, and there's an open invitation to essentially anybody that's there. John O'Keefe takes them up on that. There's certain text messages and phone conversations between John O'Keefe and Jennifer McCabe as to where this house is located, as he's never been there before. And then he and the defendant drive in the defendant's vehicle to 34 Fairview. And once there are several witnesses from within the home that observe the vehicle parked in. So I mentioned earlier there were two females that were with Brian Albert Jr. at the house, one of them being Julie Nagel. At some point, she had called her brother, Mr. Ryan, for a ride home. He then gets a ride from his friends, Ricky Antonio, as well as Mr. Nagel's girlfriend, Heather Max, that's riding in the back of Mr. Antonio's pickup truck. I say that because they arrive at Fairview Road around the same time as the defendant. The defendant is coming in from one direction, the pickup truck with the Nagel brother is coming in from another direction. The pickup truck that the Nagel brother is riding in flashes its lights, signaling the defendant to go. She goes first, they follow in behind, and lo and behold, they end up at the same house. They park the pickup truck somewhere in that right side of the property, facing it from the street in the area of the driveway, and the defendant in her black Lexus SUV parks a little bit further up. Different people from within the pickup.
Okay, so he mentioned this before too in the opening statement. He was talking about how when Karen Reed and her two friends showed up the next day, when John O'Keefe's body was already found dead in the snow, it was like on the left side of the house. So now he's talking about, okay, well, her car was also on the left side of the house. The people that were picking up the sister inside the house, they were on about the right side of the house.
And different people from within the house observed that Lexus SUV in one location, pull up a little bit further, and then pull up a little bit further until it's in the area of that fire hydrant, of that flagpole, where Mr. O'Keefe is located the following morning. Now, from their position, I anticipate the testimony that you're going to hear is that Heather Maxson from that pickup truck observes a male passenger and a female operator when the pickup truck operator flashes those lights at the vehicles are facing each other before they pull down. What you'll hear also, I anticipate, from all three of those individuals in the pickup and Julie Nagel, who comes out to the pickup to talk to the brother, is that no one ever exits that vehicle. There are no footprints around that vehicle. There's no damage that they observed to that vehicle at that time. Again, it's just started to snow. Things aren't sticking really too much at this point. Julie Nagel has a conversation with her brother, decides that she's going to...
Sorry, beginning of snow, so it's not really sticking too much. Okay.
Too much at this point. Julie Nagel has a conversation with her brother, decides that she's going to stay at the house longer, so there are arrangements for a ride home, and the pickup truck leaves from that point. As they pass by, they observe a female operator, matching what I submit as the description of the film. It's not sticking really too much at this point. Julie Nagel has a conversation with her brother, decides that she's going to stay at the house longer, so there are arrangements for a ride home, and the pickup truck leaves from that point. As they pass by, they observe a female operator, matching what I submit as the description of the defendant. From all of those people within that house that evening, none of them at any point in time observed John O'Keefe come into the house. They see the vehicle out front, they see the vehicle pull away, and they just assume that they left.
Oh man, this is okay. This is sounding good for the state so far. Oh man, can't wait for the defense to go.
And that no one was coming. Clear testimony from other individuals who were at the house that night, including Colin Albert, who was...
I mean, here's the thing, though. I think there are times where people are just really bad presenters, but once they get up on there and start asking the witnesses questions, they're like doing their thing. They're in their jive. I think it's just hard to present sometimes, especially when there's like so many people involved. And like, if you don't know anything or like, you know, a little bit about the case, you're just like, okay, this nephew. Okay. Oh, there's a junior here. Okay. Friend of a friend, niece of a nephew. Okay. There's just too many people here. You know, it gets really confusing, but I do think that, you know, it's possible when he starts getting in his role, when he starts asking questions, maybe he'll get better. Because I do see a lot in trials where we listen to opening statements. I'm just like, okay, this opening statement sucks. But then once we get to the direct examination, the cross-examination, I'm like, okay, like they're doing a good job.
Julie and Christopher Albert's son. He's also a cousin. Clear testimony from other individuals who were at the house that night, including Colin Albert, who was
Okay. What was he talking about just now? Anyone, a tow truck, two sides of the house? Question mark, question mark. Okay, so the people in the house, their son was having a birthday party, okay? One of the friend was a girl, and she was like, maybe I should leave. So she hits up her brother. Her brother drives a pickup truck. Her brother and his friends come to pick her up. And when they're on their way there, they're also noticing Karen Reed's car. So Karen's Reed car is also heading to the house. And they realize that the Karen Reed car is parked on the left side. The left side is where John O'Keefe's body is found. Not only that, but they don't notice anyone getting out of the car. Because remember, Karen Reed's story is that, I dropped off my boyfriend at the house. And that's where he got murdered, killed, or whatever happened, right? No one gets out of the car. It's just the two of them. It seems like they're just in the car probably talking, right? And so the girl who initially asked her brother for a ride was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay here. Actually, I'm just going to hang out here. I'll figure out my ride later on, whatever. And so they leave. And they notice that, Karen Reed is still in the car with like the boyfriend, John O'Keefe. That's where we're at right now.
Julian Christopher Albert's son. He's also the cousin. We'll hear testimony from other individuals who were at the house that night, including Colin Albert, who is Julian Christopher Albert's son. He's also the cousin of Brian Albert Jr., who is having people over first.
Okay, now, who was this? I feel like I might need to slow him down a little bit. He said, oh God, now no.
We'll hear testimony from other individuals who were at the house that night.
Okay, so other people at house. So what he's essentially saying is that there was a fuck ton of people at this house and no one saw John O'Keefe come into the house. So in order for this framing to work, everyone would have to be in on this. But it's possible they could all be on this if they all were participating in murdering John O'Keefe. I don't know.
Including Colin Albert, who is Julian Christopher Albert's son. He's also
Julie and Albert's son. Julie and Albert's son. Oh, Colin Albert. Okay. So now we're talking about the extended family. So this is the homeowners. All right. Brian Albert is brothers with Chris Albert, who's married to Julie Albert, and their son is Colin Albert. Okay. So we have, oh Lord. We have Julie Albert. We have Chris Albert, son Colin Albert. No way in hell the jury's following this. They're probably just like, They're probably getting like just like the important information that stands out to them. But when it comes to all this mumbo jumbo, they're probably just as lost as we are. Also, my internet's not happy right now. Hello? Or not my internet, but my mouse? Hello? Why are you not happy right now? Just be happy.
Cousin of Brian Albert Jr., who is having people over for his birthday.
Okay.
He's leaving the house around the time that the initial people coming back from the waterfall, which includes the homeowners and Mr. Higgins, are sort of coming into the house. At that point, Colin Albert was leaving. He's getting picked up by a young lady named Allison McCabe, who is Jennifer and Matthew McCabe's daughter, who's also friends with Colin Albert and also cousins of
Okay, so they're cousins and they're friends. Okay, this is who he's talking about. Colin Albert and Jennifer McCabe's daughter.
Brian Albert Jr., who's within the home celebrating his birthday. As I mentioned, you'll hear testimony from Matthew McCabe and from Jennifer McCabe in regard to their observations that particular evening, both at the waterfall as well as at the residence on Fairview Road. And then you'll hear testimony in regard to a phone call. A phone call that Jennifer McCabe receives from John O'Keefe's niece at approximately 4:53 in the morning. She answers that phone call, speaks to the niece briefly, and the niece hands the phone over to the defendant. Now, you'll hear testimony from the niece as well, that about 4:30 in the morning or so, the defendant came into her room in a frantic state, saying that Mr. O'Keefe had not come home the night before. So initially,
so are they trying to get into John O'Keefe being unfaithful to Karen Reed, or maybe he just didn't come home, and that maybe their relationship is unstable? I think that's maybe where we're heading at.
when the defendant is talking to Ms. McCabe, she indicates to Ms. McCabe that the last time she saw Mr. O'Keefe was at the waterfall. Eventually, as Ms. McCabe is waking up, she reminds the defendant that she not only saw them leave the waterfall around the same time as herself, but also saw the vehicle the defendant's vehicle outside of the home on Fairview Road. Eventually,
No, just kidding. Erase what I just said. I don't know. I don't know where he's going with this. I'm a little confused. Maybe he's trying to say that Karen's lying. Okay, sorry. Let's just listen to this. Maybe you guys can help me out.
her room in a frantic state, saying that Mr. O'Keefe had not come home the night before. So initially, when the defendant is talking to Ms. McCabe, she indicates to Ms. McCabe that the last time she saw Mr. O'Keefe was at the waterfall. Eventually, as Ms. McCabe is waking up, she reminds the defendant that she not only saw them leave the waterfall around the same time as herself, but also saw the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, outside of the home on Fairview Road. Eventually, the defendant, while driving around, this will come in as far as other testimony and related testimony as it develops. But she's driving around in that morning. She's calling a bunch of number of different people, friends of Mr. O'Keefe. She's calling Mr. O'Keefe himself. She also calls Ms. Roberts. So Kelly Roberts receives a call about.
Yeah. So I think where we're at right now is that this is after the alleged murder happened. Her running over John O'Keefe, right, or hitting him with the car. So she's saying that. I guess, do they all live in the house together or something? In a different house? Sorry. So the niece is trying to get in touch of the victim. Jennifer McCabe answers the call, and then she gives the phone to Karen Reed. Karen Reed later on comes into the room and she's frantic. She's like, oh my God, John didn't come home. John didn't come home. However, I think he said that Karen told Jennifer McCabe that the last time she saw John was at the waterfall. I think that's what he said right there. He said it so quickly. She said that she saw him leave the waterfall, which wouldn't make sense because it seems like Karen and John were driving together to the house. So maybe that's him trying to say that, like, oh, you know, initially she said that she saw him leave at the waterfall, when we all know the last time she saw him was actually in front of the house where he was allegedly murdered at.
5 a.m. from the defendant indicating that Mr. O'Keefe did not come home, indicating that he got hit by a plow or that he must be dead. Ms. Roberts then gets ready. Ms. McCabe is getting ready as they're all sort of planning to go out and look for Mr. O'Keefe and see if they can locate him. They call numerous times, and you see that within the...
And she said that he didn't come home because he got hit with a plow? Oh, that's very specific.
Calling a bunch of number of different people, friends of Mr. O'Keefe. She's calling Mr. O'Keefe himself. She also calls Ms. Roberts. So Kelly Roberts receives a call about 5 a.m. from the defendant indicating that Mr. O'Keefe did not come home, indicating that he got hit by a plow or that he must.
Oh, that is kind of weird. That would be really weird if Karen Reed was calling people and then told them, like, oh, he didn't come home. I guess he got hit by the snowplow. Why would you go to that as your conclusion, that he got hit by a snowplow? Ooh, that is weird. Hi, Mad Hatter. Yeah, to the party. Karen was like calling all these people. Ooh, not looking good, Karen.
Must be dead.
And he must be dead.
Ms. Roberts then gets ready. Ms. McCabe is getting ready as they're all sort of planning to go out and look for Mr. O'Keefe and see if they can locate him. They call numerous times, and you see that within the text messages and the phone extractions from a variety of people's different phones throughout the course of this trial as well. So eventually the defendant comes to Ms. McCabe's home, indicates at some point prior to that she has a cracked taillight. Ms. McCabe then gets in the driver's seat due to the defendant's frantic state. Ms. Roberts is there as well. Ms. Roberts follows Ms. McCabe driving the defendant's vehicle back to Mr. O'Keefe's residence in Meadows Ave, checks on the niece. The defendant then shows both Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe the damage to her right rear taillight, which is...
Oh, no. I wonder if Karen was like, let's say if she did do this, right? I wonder if Karen was trying to figure out and navigate what to do next. Like, she's like, okay, well, let me see if I can plant some stories out there. Maybe you got hit by a snowplow. Oh, you must be dead out there. Oh, you know, the last time I saw him was at the waterfall. But at the same time, she wanted to make it seem like she wasn't the obvious suspect, and usually obvious suspects wouldn't be like, look at my broken tail light. I don't know. Or maybe she was thinking about, okay, maybe I should turn myself in if she did commit it.
essentially missing a number of different pieces from that right rear.
But believe me, Karen's lawyers are going to hit hard and sound more believable. Oh, I've had a preview of their arguments. Oh, I had a preview of it.
Both Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe, the damage to her right rear taillight, which is essentially missing a number of different pieces from that right rear taillight.
And pieces of right rear taillight, is it going to be found at the house?
They then proceed off to drive and see if they can locate Mr. O'Keefe. The defendant is insistent that they go to that residence on Fairview Road. Again, they're driving down there in the dark, in the snow, in the wind, in the blizzard. As they approach towards that residence,
Are they saying she ran him over? Correcto mundo. They are saying that Karen Reed got an argument with the boyfriend. Something must have went down, and she hit him with the car, and then she just drove off. Went home, slept it off, and then the next day was like, oh my God, John didn't come home. I wonder what happened. That's the state side of the story. Wait until you hear the defense side of the story. Hi, Storm. What's up? How are you doing today? Oh, the trash report here.
there's one person, so they're seated within the vehicle. This is Ms. Roberts' vehicle. She's driving. Mrs. McCabe is in the front passenger seat. The defendant is in the rear passenger seat. The defendant is the only one who sees Mr. O'Keefe. He yells and screams at Ms. Roberts to stop the vehicle. Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe, I anticipate, will testify that they did.
Oh, no. So they're going to say that, oh, she already knew where the body was. Okay. So three of them are driving the vehicle together, and she's in the back seat. And then as they're driving up, she's like, oh, there's his body. However, the people that were sitting in the front, I guess, didn't see his body. So they're trying to insinuate that, oh, she already knew where his body was.
That residence, there's one person, so they're seated within the vehicle. This is Ms. Roberts' vehicle. She's driving. Mrs. McCabe is in the front passenger seat. And the defendant is in the rear passenger seat. The defendant is the only one who sees Mr. O'Keefe. He yells and screams at Ms. Roberts to stop the vehicle. Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe, I anticipate, will testify that they did not see Mr. O'Keefe, not only as they were driving past him, but even after they got out of the vehicle, until the defendant gets out of the back seat and makes a beeline essentially right over to where Mr. O'Keefe's body is found. Mrs. McCabe then dials 911, and shortly after that is when the officers and the firefighters arrive on scene. Now, while they're waiting there,
Sorry, I just want to get one more thing.
Mrs. McCabe then dials 911. Mr. O'Keefe's body is found. The defendant gets out of the back seat as they were driving past him, but they will testify that they did not see Mr. O'Keefe, not only as they were driving past him, but even after they got out of the vehicle, until the defendant gets out of the back seat and makes a beeline essentially right over to where Mr. O'Keefe's body is found.
Okay, so they never even saw the body. All right, and she dials 911. Okay.
Now, while they're waiting there, at approximately 6:23, 6:24 a.m., during a conversation with the defendant asks Mrs. McCabe to look up on her phone how long someone has to be out in the cold to die from hypothermia, or something to that effect. And you'll hear some dispute as to when that search was made.
Yes, why is there a dispute? Why do we not have an agreed time? So the state obviously said that, how long someone has to be in the cold to die of hypothermia, right? That was something that was searched. They said it was after the body died, after his body was found. However, I guess the defense is saying that, no, that happened before. But why is this being, why?
Something to that effect. And you'll hear some dispute as to when that search was made.
Bad
You'll hear
service in the area?
testimony from 3 different forensic extraction experts, Nicholas Carino, Ms. Jessica Hyde, and Mr. Ian Whitfield, who you'll hear about a lot of these things called extraction reports from cell phones. And the extraction reports are done with a program called Cellphone. Mr. Whiffen is someone who writes that software for Cellphone. I anticipate you'll hear from each of their testimonies that Google search that was done on Ms. McCabe's phone was done at the same time frame that she indicates the defendant requested her to do it, and that at 6:23 and 6:24 morning.
Oh, so Karen Reed requested that Google search?
You'll hear testimony from Ms. Roberts, Ms. McCabe, the firefighters, and the responding Kent police officers about a repeated phraseology that the defendant stated while there, asking again and again in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, is he dead? Is he dead? You will all.
Why is that a bad thing? If she kept asking, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? I don't know. To me, that's not weird.
Also hear testimony, as I indicated, about sort of treatment that she received at the Good Samaritan Medical Center.
Maybe it was like said in a weird way. I don't know. We got to see the body cam footage.
And that would involve testimony of Miss Daisy Ormseth, Miss Kathleen Wilford, and the Dr. Gary Fowler. We'll hear testimony from a number of different analysts from the State Police Crime Lab and from some other laboratories as well. Included within that will be Mr. Nicholas Roberts and Ms. Maureen Hartnett, Mr. Andre Porto, Ms. Ashley Vallier, and Ms. Christina Hand, those all being from the State Police Lab. You will hear testimony in regard to an incident which occurred earlier in January, right around New Year's.
Oh, do we have history of abuse?
Mr. O'Keefe, the defendant, and the children have been invited with a much larger group, approximately 70 people or so, to spend New Year's in
By Karen Reed, not by the defendant.
Aruba. This is a trip that was organized by a friend of Mr. O'Keefe's named Laura Sullivan. We'll hear testimony from her, as well as from her sister, Miss Marietta Sullivan, as well as you'll hear testimony from the two children in relation to this. And essentially, day 2 or so of this trip, Marietta Sullivan, the sister of Laura, is walking through the lobby and she runs into Mr. O'Keefe. This is someone she refers to as godfather because John O'Keefe is also the godfather of Laura Sullivan's son. Runs into him in the lobby, gives him a hug, and is sort of pointing him in the direction of where she believes he's going into his room. The defendant is in the area. The defendant starts yelling and screaming and swearing at Ms. Sullivan.
Okay.
Ms. Sullivan responds in kind. Essentially, for the most part, the Sullivan sisters see very little of Mr. O'Keefe throughout the remainder of their trip to Aruba. And we also hear testimony from the children that shortly after this, or immediately after this, there is a approximately 20-minute screaming match going on between Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant within their hotel room in front of the children.
Okay.
Now, you'll also hear testimony.
Have you followed the whole Turtle stuff? I heard about him back in was it in December when they arrested him for witness intimidation or something? I know he's not in the courtroom right now.
From the defendant's phone.
But that's like a diehard Karen Reed supporter, right? But yeah. Watching this morning was rough for you. Hello, how are you doing today? Also, if it's just her yelling and shouting and them arguing with each other, I don't see what the big deal is unless they're trying to show history of Karen Reed being completely unhinged and attacking him and hitting him and stuff like that. Maybe we'll get there.
In regard to, from another individual's phone, in regard to that Aruba trip. In regard to text messages of an amorous nature that she had with Mr. Brian Higgins, who was at the waterfall and also at the residence on 34 Fairview, because he was friends with the homeowner, Brian Albert, but he was also friends with Mr. O'Keefe and had also met the defendant. And throughout the course of those amorous text messages,
it's a whole mess. Mm-hmm. There is so much going down. There's so much trial, so much publicity about this trial. Oh my Lord.
There's references that the defendant makes to that incident in Aruba, as she purports it to be Mr. O'Keefe cheating on her. She insists that.
That's why they're bringing it up. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so they're not trying to bring up history of abuse, or maybe he'll get there, but they're trying to bring up that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, they were arguing the day of his murder because she thought he was cheating on her. So that's why he's bringing this part up right now, this argument, this shouting match.
That he was making out with Marietta Sullivan in that lobby as opposed to her giving him a hug.
What?
And makes repeated reference to that within the content of those text messages as well. Now, you'll hear testimony from a number of different other individuals. Mr. Michael Trotta, who has a supervisory role with the Canton Department of Public Works. You'll hear from Mr. Louis Jutras, who has a supervisory role with regard to IT.
Wait, hold on a second. This happened in the hotel. I wonder if the hotel lobby has the... Is there footage? Nah, it's probably erased by then, though. They usually don't keep footage for that long.
In regard to certain video that was recovered from the town of Canton, as well as from a temple located along the route that the defendant traveled, both away from Fairview that evening, as well as to Fairview from the waterfall, away from Fairview to Mr. O'Keefe's residence on Meadows.
Oh, no. Did she take a really weird route back home?
And then later in the morning, at 5 a.m. Because if you recall, Ms. McCabe, I anticipate, will testify that she receives the call from the defendant about 4:53 in the morning, The defendant then drives around Canton for some perceptible half hour or so period of time prior to even getting to Ms. McCabe's house. And what I submit the evidence, or what I anticipate the evidence will show, based on sort of the tracking of her phone records, testimony you'll hear from Lieutenant Brian Tully of the State Police, from these Volti records and RTT accounts, that the defendant, while she's using her phone, is driving in the direction of Fairview Road prior to going to Mrs. McCabe's house, where she meets Mrs. McCabe and Ms. Roberts.
So does it make it look like, I think they're trying to say that, like, it looks like Karen was about to drive to the Fairview home where John's body was found, but then was like taking a long-winded way, going to other places, and then she ended up going to Jennifer McCabe's house. Or maybe, I guess it depends on where she went. What if she went to the houses of the people that she thought John O'Keefe was like cheating with or something? I don't know. She took the Wendy Adelson route. Well, let's see what the defense explanation is. There could be a good explanation for this.
You'll hear testimony from a number of different troopers who were involved in the investigation. With regard to this case, you'll hear from Trooper Michael Proctor and Sergeant Yuri Mechanic of the State Police. You'll hear from Lieutenant Brian Tully. You'll hear some testimony from Trooper Joseph Hall, who's in a specialized unit within the State Police called PARS for short, but essentially a collision analysis and reconstruction section within the Massachusetts State Police. His examination of the vehicle, his examination of the scene, his examination of specifically some Toyota texture, because Lexus is essentially owned by Toyota or vice versa. So there is some data that he's able to recover from that and back the vehicle up based on its known locations and travel, key cycles, and essentially opines, anticipate he'll opine that around 12:45 in the morning, when the vehicle was in front of the residence on Fairview, that for some perceptible period of time, that vehicle travels over 60 feet in reverse at over approximately 24.2 miles per hour. Now, you'll hear testimony, as I said, from a number of different troopers, as well as from a number of different analysts from different labs. Included within that is Ms. Maureen Hartnett, who collected items from the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, including the taillights, sort of housing from that vehicle, pieces of the taillight that were discovered.
Oh, they got pieces, okay.
In sort of the front grass, front street area. There is a specialized team called the CERT team. You'll hear from Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, who has a supervisory role in relation to that. And then later on that day of the 29th, he, along with Lieutenant Tully and a number of different members from his CERT team, were searching for evidence within the mounds of snow in front of that house, as the blizzard is still ongoing at this point through sort of the afternoon hours. Among the items that they locate is a sneaker. When Mr. O'Keefe is transported to the hospital, he's found to only have one sneaker on his feet. They find the other sneaker in that area of the body. They find various pieces of taillight. And as is wont to do, over the course of the following days, the temperatures rise, the rainstorm that comes in, and the snow melts. Over those successive days, there are additional pieces of taillights that are eventually discovered in that area of the front lawn.
Ooh, a taillight thing, not looking good.
3. Now, from these different pieces, Ms. Hartnett also locates a cocktail glass.
Oh, you know what? Wait, hold on a second. Did she ever explain the taillight? I actually don't know if she explains the taillight or not, or maybe she did, but like, I feel like she could say that he punched the taillight out because he was so pissed at her.
That's located on the bumper or the rear area of that scene.
Hey, Radio Chick, thank you so much for the follow. How are you doing today? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it.
And she locates a human hair on the back of that defendant's vehicle as well. Now, the cocktail glass on the bumper, you'll also see surveillance video from the waterfall. And Mr. O'Keefe is observed on that surveillance video essentially walking out of the waterfall with a cocktail glass in his right hand.
Oh, okay. I was like, what is a cocktail? Oh, cocktail glass. Oh my gosh. I kept hearing cocktail brass. I was like, what is a cocktail brass? Initially, I thought he was talking about something with like a car or something. Okay, wait. He left the bar with a cocktail glass. Oh man, that's a Vegas thing.
Area of that scene, and she locates a human hair on the back of that defendant's vehicle as well.
Okay, the human hair. What's the importance of that?
Cocktail glass on the bumper. You'll also see surveillance video from the waterfall. And Mr. O'Keefe is observed on that surveillance video essentially walking out of the waterfall with a cocktail glass in his right hand. Same right hand that has minor injuries to it, and the same right hand that's attached to his right arm that has the abrasions and lacerations that are observed by the paramedics, that are observed by the doctors at Good Samaritan, and are observed by the medical examiner as well. We'll hear testimony from another analyst, Christina Hanley, about the forensic consistency between a drinking glass that was in the defendant's bumper and the drinking glass pieces that were found on scene at 34 Fairview. You'll hear her testimony in regard to pieces of red and clear plastic that were microscopic in size that were found within Mr. O'Keefe's clothing. Consistent, in her opinion, I anticipate she'll testify, with the same pieces of plastic contained within the defendant's taillight.
The tail light, they say she hit John's car backing out of the driveway of 34 Fairview, where his body was found. But the tail light's the easiest part to plant.
You'll hear from an Ashley Valley who works for the lab as well.
I mean, honestly, if this is like a whole conspiracy cover up, it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be really easy to unravel all of this, because it's hard to have a bunch of people be in on something and to not slip, to either, you know, it's hard to like keep your story straight, like completely straight and like consistent with each other. This is a lot of people that would have to be in on this. It's the people that were in the house, some of the teenagers, and then also like a whole ass police department.
And how she fit the various pieces of broken taillight from the scene together and over that taillight housing, finding them to be consistent with each other as well. You'll hear testimony from Andre Porto, who's the essentially DNA analyst for the lab, and samples that were...
Wait, who's the judge? How's the judge connected? Why is the judge connected? Wouldn't they be recused?
DNA samples that were taken from the taillight, from the clothes of Mr. O'Keefe, and the broken drinking glass that were consistent with Mr. O'Keefe. Those items were also sent, the taillight pieces, the taillight DNA was also sent to an independent lab.
How is she connected? Is it like family members or anything like that, or...
Bodie Technologies located in Northern Virginia. And you'll hear from an analyst there, Mr. Nicholas Bradford, indicating that the DNA on the defendant's taillight, in his opinion, is consistent with that.
Oh, at John's house when she went home to sleep. Okay. But then there were fragments found in front of the house, though, where John's body was found.
Of Mr. O'Keefe, and inconsistent with Trooper
She's saying that those were planted?
Sergeant Buchanan, the DNA on the defendant's taillight, in his opinion, is consistent with that of Mr. O'Keefe, and inconsistent with Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan, who were the two preliminary investigators and primary investigators when it came to this case. You'll also hear from this test chart from that Bodie Laboratories in regard to some mitochondrial DNA that she examined in regard to that hair that Ms. Hartnett found on the bumper of the car, and her opinion that it was consistent with that of Mr. O'Keefe as well. Lastly, you'll also hear from Dr. Irene Scortibello and Dr.
Oh, wait, hold on. I just got this, like, it says, like, the Turtle Boy guy can attend the Karen Reed murder trial. Is he in there?
Stonebridge of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in regard to their various examinations. Dr. Stonebridge is a neuropathologist. She essentially examines brain findings. Dr. Irene Scortibello is a forensic pathologist who does the sort of autopsy and medical examination of Mr. O'Keefe's body. You'll hear about the variety of sort of injuries that she observed over Mr. O'Keefe's body from him. In particular, you'll hear testimony in regard to lacerations to the right back of his head. You'll hear testimony in regard to an initial sort of skull fracture that occurs to the back of his head, and then sort of a radiating skull fracture that goes throughout his skull, which then leads to a subdural hemorrhage, or essentially bleeding on the brain, and then swelling of the brain, which then causes a condition called ecchymosis, which then sort of leads to the swelling of both of Mr. O'Keefe's eyes that was observed by the initial responders. You will hear various testimony about sort of issues in regard to his pancreas, and how that's indicative of hypothermia. Now, again, as I said, this is the first of two times that I have an opportunity to address you directly. And I thank you very much for your attention today. And I
Hey,
thank
Norm, how are you doing today?
Your close attention as we go through all of the witnesses and all the evidence in this case. That second time but I do get to address you. What I'll be asking you to do, based on the evidence, and again, as the court has instructed you, you are the sole arbiters of the facts of this case. You are the ones who find what the facts, I reiterate that, facts, and what the evidence demonstrates in this case. And what I submit to you at that time, that second time, is that the only true and just verdict based on that is that the defendant, Karen Reed, is guilty of murder in the second degree, striking the victim, Mr. O'Keefe, with her car, knocking him back onto the ground, striking his head on the ground, causing the bleeding in his brain, swelling, and then leaving him there for several hours in a blizzard, with temperatures in the teens, wind swirling around, snow piling up on his body, until she comes with Mrs. McCabe and Mrs. Roberts just after 6 a.m. And that she is also guilty of vehicular manslaughter, operating under the influence of liquor, and that she is also guilty of leaving the scene after causing death. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lally. Mr. Eddie?
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court.
Now we have the defense. That was I don't know. Hopefully the defense will make it very clear cut, and we'll see. Defense opening. Oh, well, thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're doing good. We're just covering the Karen Reed trial. This is opening statements right now, and I want to see what the defense is going to say.
Karen Reed was framed.
Good start.
Her car never struck John O'Keefe. She did not cause his death. And that means that somebody else did.
Okay.
You will learn that it was no accident that John O'Keefe was found dead on the front lawn of 34 Fairview Road in Canton on January 29th of 2022.
The defense was why I was having a rough time this morning. Wait, why?
Learn that at that address lived a well-known and well-connected law enforcement family in Canton, the Alberts. Because the Alberts were involved, and because they had close connections to the investigators in this case, Karen Reed was framed for a murder she did not commit. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. As I previously told you, my name is David Yannetti.
Hello,
I'm
David.
an attorney with an office in Boston. Together with attorneys Alan Jackson and Elizabeth Little, it is truly my privilege and my honor to represent Karen Reed during this trial. From a very early juncture in this case, you will question the Commonwealth's theory of the case. You will question the quality of the Commonwealth's evidence. You will question the veracity of the Commonwealth's witnesses. And you will question their shoddy and biased investigation, a faulty investigation that led to Karen Reed sitting here today. You will learn, in short, that the police did no real investigation of this case, and you will question why. You'll question why the investigators had such tunnel vision. You'll question why they focused solely on Karen Reed, someone with no ties to the Canton Police Department, as opposed to the well-known and well-connected Albert family of Canton.
Hey, what's up, Judy? Thank you so much for the sub for 71 months. Actually, you know what? Sorry, I should have went to the bathroom before we started. I'm gonna use the restroom really quick. I'll be back in a minute. a greenie. A greenie. You're new around here. Anyone else in the chat familiar with the case at all? I don't know. Is anyone in the Twitch chat? Are you guys familiar with this case? I started following it a couple months back. It's wild. But I also dual stream on Twitch and on YouTube, so you guys can feel free to watch me on either platforms. No spoilers for me, but it was getting repetitive real fast. Oh, was it?
Family that was never treated as suspects by the investigators in this case. Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found mortally injured on Brian Albert's front lawn. His body was in full view and almost right below Brian Albert's bedroom window on his front lawn. He was found wearing only one sneaker. You'll learn that Brian Albert was a Boston police officer as well, and that he was a trained first responder.
Okay.
Brian Albert was notified that another police officer was injured and unresponsive on his front lawn, and Brian Albert did nothing. His sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, and other civilians were on his property that morning after John O'Keefe's body was found. Police, EMTs, firefighters, police cruisers, an ambulance, fire truck, lights flashing, and first responder Brian Albert never came out of his house.
Was he hungover, or could it just be like, oh, if it's like, if he's like, you know how like sometimes if you're like sort of like involved, you have to like distance yourself from it and not be a part of it, because then you could be accused of tainting it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Equally important for you will be the fact that the lead homicide investigators never went inside the Albert home that night. You'll learn that Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert, is a Canton police officer. It was obvious very early on that the Canton police should not be investigating the death of a man found on the property of the brother of a Canton police officer.
Okay.
So it was decided just about from the start that the Massachusetts State Police should take complete control of this investigation, because the Canton police were conflicted out.
Okay.
Now, that sounded good at the time, but you'll learn that two major problems arose. First, despite the fact that they obviously had a conflict of interest, the evidence will show that the Canton police still had their hands in this investigation. You will find it astounding. But Canton police officer Kevin Albert, the reason for the conflict of interest in the first place, was continually updated about the status of this investigation while it was going on. Second, and equally troubling, is that the lead state police detective who was assigned to this case was a man named Michael Proctor.
Who?
Michael Proctor, you will learn, is one of the many people in Canton with deep ties to the Albert family. Michael Proctor's own mother refers to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. His own sister's wedding, Michael Proctor was in the wedding party with Colin Albert. And he sat at the head table of that wedding with members of the Albert family. That's the man who was chosen to lead the investigation into the suspicious death on the property of Brian Albert.
I mean, what do they do in like small towns, you know, when people are so interconnected with each other? And then it's like, oh, well, the person that's being investigated, geez, my family, they're pretty close to their family. It's like, so initially they had Canton police took over the investigation, but then because there's a conflict of interest, they had another police department take over the investigation. But then the lead detective was also close to the Albert family, like, Nahale?
That's the man who gave updates to Canton police officer Kevin Albert, while the state police were supposed to be investigating what had occurred at his brother Brian Albert's house. You'll learn that right from the jump, Michael Proctor predetermined the outcome of this case. Never stepped foot inside the Albert home on January 29th,
Wait, so let's go back to this family tree. So Brian Albert and Chris Albert, they were both law enforcement?
2022. Never checked out whether there were any signs of struggle inside that home. He never called for crime scene technicians and other specialists to look for blood or other trace evidence within the home. He never asked Brian Albert for permission to go in the home and take a look around. Michael Proctor never applied for a search warrant to go in that home. Instead, he focused immediately and exclusively on Karen Reed, the outsider. You will learn that no one in the Proctor family has ever called the Reed family their second family. No one in the Proctor family had been in a wedding party with anyone from the Reed family. Karen Reed was a convenient outsider. She was most definitely not from Canton. So how did Michael Proctor feel about her? How did he treat somebody he was investigating at a point in time when he should have been keeping an open mind and focusing on obtaining all possible evidence so that he didn't miss anything?
Do we have a Karen Reed interrogation, or did she blow up pretty quickly?
Well, you will learn that on the very day that John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's lawn, Michael Proctor was texting with his high school buddies about this supposedly secret investigation, using his personal cell phone. He was revealing information about this investigation.
Oh, but she did go to NBC and ABC. Ooh. Like usually when you go on like TV shows or like you do like a little segment, I don't know. Sometimes it's not good. Okay, I wonder what she said on there. I haven't watched those yet.
To his friends. He was revealing information about this investigation to his friends, assuming that nobody would ever find out what he was doing and what he was saying. And he was revealing his true thoughts about Karen Reed to his
do we have those
friends. Not what he
texts?
put in his sanitized police reports. His true feelings. To his friends whom he trusted, and in text messages that
Interview wasn't good. How so?
he never thought would come into the hands of the defense in this case. Lead investigator Trooper Michael Proctor, right from the start, called Karen Reed names you would reserve only for your worst enemies. He told his friends that he hoped that she would kill herself. He told his friends that he had seized her cell phone. And you will learn that he knew he shouldn't have been accessing any content on her cell phone because he knew there would likely be attorney-client communications on between Karen and me at that time. He knew that he was supposed to wait for a search warrant or other
Oh, I was like, wait, did he have a search warrant? Or maybe he asked for it and then she just like gave it to him?
permission from a judge in order to go through that phone. But you'll learn that he went through the phone anyway, without permission. And you'll know that he did because he told his high school buddies that he was searching her phone for nude photos of Karen Reed. And he was
Yikes.
disappointed he hadn't found any yet. That is the professional and unbiased investigator who was chosen to lead the investigation into the death of John
Is he gonna go up there and testify and explain these messages? Oh no.
O'Keefe.
Michael
We'll
Proctor.
learn that one of Michael Proctor's high school friends commented to him that with a dead body on the front lawn, the homeowner in this case is surely going to catch a lot of grief. And you know what Michael Proctor's response to that was? One word. Nope. And he explained why. Michael Proctor assured his buddies that the homeowner would not catch a lot of grief because, quote, the homeowner's a Boston cop too. And
The homeowner's what?
because, quote, the homeowner's a Boston cop too.
Oh, the homeowner's a Boston cop too.
End quote.
I gotta see the context of this text message. I don't know. You never know.
That one,
Because it's possible that she it's possible she murdered him. And then it's also possible within that same realm that we just have a very shitty lead investigator. So I don't know. I need more evidence. Okay, give us more evidence.
The sentence, ladies and gentlemen, in Michael Proctor's own words, will explain a lot to you about how this investigation
Also, is Michael Proctor, where is he at right now? What's going on with him? Someone said that he was being investigated.
was conducted. You will be able to evaluate whether Trooper Michael Proctor treated Brian Albert and his family differently because of who they are and their relationships between his family and theirs. You will evaluate whether this investigation was on the up and up. You will decide, as a result, how valuable or worthless the prosecution's DNA evidence is or is not, in light of who controlled that evidence. You will learn that Michael Proctor's fingerprints are figurative.
Yeah, I did hear that the feds are also involved in this.
All over this case. His fingerprints are all over the Commonwealth's evidence.
Wait, so was Michael Proctor... Okay, never mind. He wasn't at the house. Okay. I was like, it'd be fun if we found out later on that he was at the house and he didn't say nothing. Nah, that'd be way too crazy.
Michael Proctor showed up at Karen Reed's parents' house in Dighton to interview her during the afternoon of January 29th, only hours after John O'Keefe's body was found dead on Brian Albert's front lawn. You'll learn that Michael Proctor had her Lexus SUV towed from her parents' home. But you'll also learn that he wrote a search warrant in which he falsified the time that he took that SUV. He swore under oath that the vehicle wasn't towed until 5:30 p.m. But you'll learn that we obtained surveillance footage that he didn't know we would get. And that surveillance footage exposed that Michael Proctor's words in that sworn affidavit were a lie. Michael Proctor had that vehicle for about 90 minutes before he claimed to have taken it. And folks, you will learn that the timing is important, very important.
Okay.
Because when John O'Keefe was first found on Brian Albert's front lawn, the police thoroughly searched that yard for potential evidence. And it wasn't just one officer, or two, or three. There were at least 4 officers that searched that front lawn. Mm-hmm. And that morning was the beginning of a snowstorm, but there wasn't
Okay, he's getting there. I'm very intrigued. Okay.
yet much snow on the ground
Hi,
when
Stefan.
they were searching that lawn. It was light out by the time they did the search, and it was getting lighter. And during that thorough search of Brian Albert's front lawn, the number of pieces of taillight that were found by a minimum of 4 officers looking for evidence was 0. It was only later in the day, when the snow was really starting to accumulate, that the police miraculously started to find pieces of taillight on the property.
Well, was it because they were digging through? Because I would understand initially not finding pieces of taillight because let's say if she hit him around like the midnight time, right? And then snow was like piling up. Maybe the taillight pieces were underneath the snow and they had to dig through in order to find it. I guess I need to know more about this fucking taillight thing.
The police only started to find pieces of taillight after Michael Proctor had seized Karen Reed's car.
Has seized Karen Reed car. Okay, I'm just trying to see how he would plant this. Okay.
They only started to find pieces of taillight after Michael Proctor had possession of her taillight. You'll learn that Trooper Michael Proctor then kept going back to the Albert residence after that day, and he claims to have kept finding pieces of taillight on multiple occasions on multiple different days. And in addition, a good week after John O'Keefe's death, Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz, an older officer on the brink of retirement with probably not the best eyesight, he supposedly was driving, happened to be driving past Brian Albert's house. And by the way, Brian Albert is someone with whom Chief Berkowitz is also good friends. And this older man allegedly spotted yet another piece of taillight from his moving vehicle. This was yet another piece of taillight that was somehow missed by the trained specialists who had previously and thoroughly searched the property Another piece of taillight that Proctor supposedly missed in the many times he went back to the property. Michael Proctor claims that he kept finding pieces of taillight right up until February 18th of 2022, which was nearly 3 weeks after John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's home. You will learn that there is no competent evidence that Karen Reed's taillight shattered at Brian Albert's property in the early morning hours of January 29th of 2022. To the contrary, you'll learn that when Karen left John at Brian Albert's house, she drove back to John's house on Meadows Ave across town in Canton.
Okay.
At John's home, where he lived with his 2 adopted children, Karen was drifting in and out of sleep, but she woke up for good in a panic sometime around 4 a.m. because John hadn't come home. And that was not like him at all. He had never done that before. Karen had a sinking feeling that something was wrong. Something was seriously wrong. So she got back into her Lexus. She backed up out of the garage to leave the driveway. And when she did, the right rear taillight of her Lexus.
Oh, that's when. Okay.
Struck John's parked vehicle in the driveway, and her taillight cracked.
Now, I wonder, I wish we knew if there was like an evolution of the story. Like, was this information already mentioned in the very beginning, or was it later on after she lawyered up?
That was the same taillight that the
So she backed into his vehicle. Okay.
Taillight cracked.
Because we have pieces of her taillight at his garage too?
That was the same taillight that the prosecution now claims was broken outside the Albert residence hours earlier at 12:38. But we have video evidence that the taillight was actually broken at 5 a.m.
Oh.
Many hours after the prosecution needs that taillight to have been broken. There is, of course, no video of the taillight being broken at Brian Albert's house. You will eventually conclude that that's because the taillight was not broken there. Importantly, you will learn that there was an eyewitness who arrived at 34 Fairview after Karen got there with John O'Keefe in the early morning hours of January 29th. And that eyewitness, Brian Nagel, who's the brother of Julie Nagel, who was at the after-hours party that night. He had a clear view of Karen's eyewitness. Learned that there was an eyewitness who arrived at 34 Fairview after Karen got there with John O'Keefe in the early morning hours of January 29th. And that eyewitness, Brian Nagel, who's the brother of Julie Nagel, who was at the after-hours party that night.
Okay.
He had a clear view of Karen's SUV. Brian Nagel confirms that there was no damage to her taillight at that time. Karen was sitting in the driver's seat with her hands at 10 and 2. And Ryan Nagel confirms that while Karen was inside the car, John O'Keefe was not. John O'Keefe was also not outside the car at that time. You will ultimately conclude there's only one of them.
Wait, where was Brian Nagel when he saw this, though?
Outside the car at that time. You will ultimately conclude there's only one other place he could have been. Now, going back to that 5 a.m. video from John's driveway, you will see Karen back up her Lexus and strike John's car at about 5 a.m. when she was leaving John's house to go out to look for him. And you will know that she struck his car at 5 a.m. because you will watch that video closely.
Oh, no. Oh, wait. Oh, we have a video of this. Well, that makes things a little bit complicated.
Back up her Lexus and strike John's car at about 5 a.m. when she was leaving John's house to go out to look for him.
Okay.
And you will know that she struck his car at 5 a.m. because you will watch that video closely. You will witness that the wheels and the hubcaps on John's car are jostled and moved by Karen's SUV. And you will conclude that that video depicts exactly when Karen's taillight was cracked.
But does it line up, though? Does the wheel and the hubcap line up with the back taillights of an SUV?
Long after she dropped off John that night at 34 Fairview. And you will learn that part of the reason that Karen's Lexus hit John's car was that Karen was panicked at that time. Where is John?
Okay.
Why didn't he come home?
It's a good explanation.
What happened to him? And you will learn that she was racking her brain for what possibly could have happened. And like many of us, was worried about the worst. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? That was what she was saying, both to herself and to other people later that morning when she went back to 34 Fairview.
She doesn't react at all when she hits John's car?
Of anything else that made sense. She certainly didn't consider in a million years that someone from within the Albert home could have beaten up John and left him to die on the front lawn. Now, that was over 2 years ago.
Now, I guess did anyone notice if anyone in the house had any like injuries or like scratches or like knuckles or anything like that? Like, did anyone say that like, oh yeah, I arrived and like I noticed, oh, that guy's like knuckles are kind of red, or I noticed, oh, she had a scratch on her face. Do we have anything like that?
Karen didn't know then what you will learn during this trial. Karen didn't know that Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe.
Well, Lisette, which way do you think I'm swaying? I don't know. I'm actually really intrigued with this video thing that he's talking about, but it could be that when he shows us the video, it could be nothing like what he's saying. He could be exaggerating.
Left the
But I am very intrigued about this video.
Party at Brian Albert's house sometime after Karen pulled away. She didn't know that after Jennifer McCabe dropped off some people elsewhere, she returned to her own home. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe climbed some stairs in her home and eventually made it into her bedroom with her cell phone.
Oh, wait, why is that name so familiar? Brian Walsh. Brian Walsh. Oh, Brian Walsh, the guy with the horrible search history, right? Accused of murdering his wife. Is that who Brian Walsh is? The name sounds so familiar.
Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe climbed some stairs in her home and eventually made it into her bedroom with her cell phone. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe settled in at 2:27 in the morning on January 29th, 2022, and typed a Google search that she would later delete. 2:20.
Okay, hold on. Now we're getting to the crazy stuff. Hold on. Let me make sure I got my notes right on this.
Someone from within the Albert. Karen didn't know then what you will learn during this trial. Karen didn't know that Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, left the after-hours party at Brian Albert's house sometime after Karen pulled away. She didn't know that after Jennifer McCabe dropped off some people elsewhere, she returned to her own home. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe climbed some stairs in her home and eventually made it into her bedroom with her cell phone. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe settled in at 2:27 in the morning on January 29th, 2022, and typed a Google search that she would later delete. 2:27 in the morning was over 3 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's lawn. 2:27 was over 3 hours before anyone knew or suspected that John O'Keefe was missing or hurt or in trouble. And at 2:27 in the morning, you will learn that with no one watching her, thinking she was alone with her thoughts, and not worrying that anyone would know what she was doing, Jennifer McCabe typed in the following Google search: how long to die in the cold? Now, she misspelled the first word, so the actual search was how long to die in the cold, but you'll get the point. You will ask yourself, why would somebody Google how long does it take for someone to die in the cold, unless that person knew someone who either was in that situation or would be in that situation? You will question during this trial, who was it who actually did die in the cold at some point that night?
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of the experts with that one, because the state is saying, well, that search was done after John O'Keefe's body was found. Defense is saying that search was done before John's body was found.
Sometime after Jen McCabe was asking Google for an answer to her question. And you'll learn that the answer to that question was John O'Keefe. The medical examiner in this case will testify that one of the causes of John O'Keefe's death was hypothermia. John O'Keefe died in part because he was left to die in the cold. Now, the Commonwealth will try to dispute the timing of that Google search. They'll try to claim that there were only 2 Google searches at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. after John's body was found. But one problem for the Commonwealth will be that we have retained Richard Green, one of the leading computer forensic experts in the country. Rick Green has forensically analyzed Jennifer McCabe's phone, both manually and using every appropriate type of computer software to solve this issue. Rick Green will confirm for you that Jennifer McCabe did indeed make that search at 2:27 a.m. And another problem for the Commonwealth is that you will hear and see other evidence that will confirm that Jennifer McCabe is lying when she denies making that Google search at 2:27 a.m. You will conclude that before she went to bed, if she went to bed that night, Jennifer McCabe wanted to know just how long it would take for someone to die in the cold. And a big question in this trial for you will be, when was John O'Keefe left to die in the cold? I expect the Commonwealth will try to persuade you that he was left there sometime around 12:30 a.m. because they're going to try to prove to you that Karen Reed hit him and that his body stayed there the entire night until first responders arrived at 6 a.m. and his body was taken to the hospital. But you will learn that there are big problems with the Commonwealth's theory of this case. You will learn that there were 6 people at that after-hours party at Brian Albert's house, all of whom left by the front door and would have been confronted by John O'Keefe's lifeless body on that lawn if he was actually there at that time. Those 6 people walked out the front door to 34 Fairview, walked to their cars, either in the driveway or parked in front of the house. Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, was there.
I guess, like, how wasted were the people inside the house? Were they wasted, or were they just like chilling? How bad was the snow at the time?
Her husband, Matthew McCabe, was
Where
there.
was the car parked? Like, what was the path that they took from the house to get to their cars, their vehicles, their Ubers, whatever the fuck they was?
There. ATF federal agent Brian Higgins was there, who was also Brian Albert's friend. Sarah Levinson, a friend of Brian Albert Jr., was there. Julie Nagel, another friend of Brian Albert Jr., was there. And Caitlin Albert, Brian Albert's daughter, was also there. All of them leaving the residence. Each of those people left 34 Fairview in Canton, where Brian Albert lived. Each of them walked out facing the front lawn, where the Commonwealth will tell you that a 6'2", nearly 220-pound big man in dark clothing was sprawled on the front lawn when there was only a dusting of white snow on the ground. He was supposedly sprawled on that lawn, just feet from where these people were walking when they left the residence. And you will learn that not one of these people saw John O'Keefe laying. Not one. And you know who else saw no one laying outside in the early morning hours of January 29th?
I heard about the snowplow driver.
The snowplow driver in charge of plowing the street for the city of Canton. And this is another big problem for the Commonwealth.
What time did he come by?
You will learn that Michael Proctor, here's that name again, wrote a report where he claimed that the DPW supervisor had told him that Fairview Road had not been plowed that night. Proctor's total investigation on this issue consisted of one phone call and no follow-up. He just submitted his report that simply said the road hadn't been plowed that night, and perhaps thinking that no one else would follow up either. But you'll learn that when it came to finding out the truth, it's not that Proctor couldn't find the truth, it's that he wouldn't. But fortunately, you'll learn that we would, and we did. You'll learn that within weeks after January 29th, we sent our investigator a former Medford police officer named Paul Makowski to the Canton DPW to try to get to the bottom of this. Paul Makowski talked to the same supervisor at the DPW, a man named Michael Trotta, whom Proctor claimed had told him that the street hadn't been plowed that night. You'll learn that Paul Makowski found out that Michael Proctor was not telling the truth. You'll learn that Michael Trotta from the DPW told Paul Makowski, our investigator, that the street was indeed plowed that night, and that the name of the plow driver was Brian Laughlin. So Paul Makowski tracked down Brian Laughlin. He asked Mr. Laughlin if the state police or any investigators had ever spoken to him. And the answer came back, no. You will then learn what Brian Laughlin had to say about what he saw and didn't see that night, and you will be shocked. Brian Laughlin told Paul Makowski that he was driving a big snowplow in Canton that night. You'll learn that the nickname for it at the DPW was Frankenstein, because it had a lot of spare parts and it had been around forever. Brian Laughlin told Paul Makowski that when he plows the streets of Canton in Frankenstein, he's very careful. He makes sure to check not only the roads in front of him, but also the yards to the side of his plow. He makes sure not to hit a fire hydrant or a tree or an animal, or heaven forbid, a person lying in the snow. He's always on the lookout. You'll learn that Brian Laughlin passed by 34 Fairview in his plow, traveling right by Brian Albert's front lawn at 2:30 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Laughlin confirms that at about 2:30.
Oh, 2:30. I thought he came like way later.
When he went by that house, John O'Keefe was not on that front lawn. So you'll learn that about 2 hours after the Commonwealth claims that Karen Reed somehow incapacitated John O'Keefe, an eyewitness confirms that not only could it not have happened, but it didn't happen. But you'll learn that Brian Laughlin also provides some other troubling testimony for the Commonwealth. You'll learn that after making that pass at 2:30 in the morning and seeing no body, he showed up again at the entrance to Fairview Road, intending to make. You'll learn that could it not have happened, but it didn't happen. But you'll learn that Brian Laughlin also provides some other troubling testimony for the Commonwealth. You'll learn that after making that pass at 2:30 in the morning and seeing no body, he showed up again at the entrance to Fairview Road, intending to make another pass down it with his plow. This time, however, at about 3:30 in the morning, he looked down the street and he saw that parked right next to Brian Albert's front lawn, right in the very area where John O'Keefe's body was later found at 6 a.m., Brian Laughlin saw a Ford Edge parked on the side of the road. You will learn that the police have done zero investigation to discover whose Ford Edge that was. You'll learn that members of the Albert...
What was the snowplower's like plow route? Like, was he just plowing like... I would imagine you'd be plowing like neighborhoods and neighborhoods and neighborhoods. I guess, like, how would he remember there was a Ford there?
Family drove Ford Edges. You'll learn that the police to this day claim not to know who was parked right next to the area where John O'Keefe's body was later found. You will learn that while investigators on this case, including Michael Proctor...
Oh, man, the cameras in the courtrooms are so good.
...completely ignored the snowplow driver who went right by the Albert residence, the defense not only tracked him down and interviewed him, but the plow driver actually took our investigator on a ride back past the residence to explain that...
You know, it'll be, I wonder if the defense has this. I wonder if the defense has like some sort of like a... I feel like this would help a lot to kind of like show the jury how this like could have all went down. Like the views, like, okay, if I was like plowing snow on this road, where would the body be? Would I be able to see it clearly? Like, I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see if they ever make like some sort of a 3D like rendition of this.
That while investigators on this case, including Michael Proctor, completely ignored the snowplow driver who went right by the Albert residence, the defense not only tracked him down and interviewed him, but the plow driver actually took our investigator on a ride back past the residence to explain the precise route that he had taken on January 29th.
Like, if they can show us that too.
You'll learn that some other curious things were going on in the early morning hours of January 29. Curious things that the police in this case utterly failed to investigate. For example, after people left the after-hours party at Brian Albert's house on January 29, Brian Albert claimed that he had no contact with anyone but his wife until he was woken up in the morning. But you will learn that he was ultimately confronted by the fact that his phone records revealed that he had actually placed a phone call to ATF agent Brian Higgins, his friend, the same friend who had been at his house earlier that night. And that was at 2:22 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Higgins called him back 17 seconds later, and they connected for 22 seconds on their cell phones. You'll be asked to consider just how long 22 seconds is and what could be said and discussed during that long of a phone call. You will consider that phone call in the context of the other curious things that were going on during the early morning hours of January 29th. You will learn about the following in chronological order. 2:12 a.m., Jennifer McCabe arrives at her home. 2:22 a.m., Brian Albert calls Brian Higgins. 2:22 a.m., 17 seconds later, Higgins calls him back.
Wait, hold on a second. All right, so we got a lot of phone activity going on. So 2:12, Jennifer McCabe, the one who did the Google search, arrives home.
2:22 a.m., Brian Albert calls Brian Higgins. 2:22 a.m., 17 seconds later, Higgins calls him back. And Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are on the phone together for 22 seconds. 2:23 a.m., Jennifer McCabe climbs the stairs to her bedroom. 2:27 a.m., Jennifer McCabe searches on Google how long to die in the cold.
Wait, how did she know that she went up the stairs at 2:23? Oh, it's like a Fitbit or something? Or is there surveillance in her house?
2:30 a.m., cloud driver Brian Laughlin confirms.
What's Karen Reed's profession? What does she do?
There was no body on Brian Albert's front lawn. 3:30 a.m., Brian Laughlin confirms that a Ford Edge was parked right where Brian Laughlin, Albert's driver.
Oh, is this Ford Edge? Whose car is that going to belong to?
In the cold. 2:30 a.m., cloud driver Brian Laughlin confirms there was no body on Brian Albert's front lawn. 3:30 a.m., Brian Laughlin confirms that a Ford Edge was parked right where John O'Keefe's body was later found. The Commonwealth will not be able to successfully dispute any of those facts that I expect.
Oh, she's a professor, maybe in finance? Some finance shit?
That they
Nice
will
answer.
persist in asking you to convict Karen Reed anyway. You will learn that there are other major problems with the Commonwealth's theory. You'll learn that when John O'Keefe was found, he did not look like he had been hit by a car. You'll learn that he looked to have been attacked and beaten up. You'll learn that John O'Keefe was a large 6'2" man who, if positioned behind a Lexus SUV, would have had his torso completely exposed to the rear of that vehicle, including to the taillight. You'll learn that no part of his torso was injured. There was no bruising, no ridges, no scratches, no punctures. You'll learn that his chest and hips and legs were pristine, despite the Commonwealth's contention that he was hit by a 6,000-pound vehicle. The evidence will show that what was not pristine was his right arm. You will take one look at that arm, and you will conclude that a car did not cause those injuries. The injuries to John O'Keefe's arm appear to be consistent with scratch marks and claw marks, marks that make it look as though an animal had attacked his arm. But you won't have to rely just on your common sense when you look at those photos. You'll hear from an expert forensic pathologist who is world-renowned, who has personally conducted thousands of autopsies. And he will testify that those marks are consistent with scratch and claw marks and bite marks from an animal, including a German Shepherd. You'll learn that on January 29th of 2022, Brian Albert's family dog, Chloe, was a German Shepherd. You'll learn that Brian Albert has admitted that this dog. You'll learn that on January 29th of 2022, Brian Albert's family dog, Chloe, was a German Shepherd. You'll learn that Brian Albert has admitted that this dog is not good around strangers. You'll learn that on January 29th of 2022, John O'Keefe would have been a stranger to that dog. And you'll learn that Chloe had been the beloved family dog for the Alberts for 7 years. The Albert family loved Chloe. But strangely, as we discuss this dog today, the Albert family doesn't have its beloved Chloe anymore. You'll learn that Brian Albert was called to testify before the grand jury regarding this matter in April of 2022, and that he did testify about his German Shepherd, Chloe, during that grand jury testimony.
Okay.
And you'll learn that not long after that testimony, Brian Albert and his family rehomed their beloved family dog. They gave away their family dog, and Chloe, the German Shepherd, is therefore now gone. Now, the Commonwealth will try to take your attention away from all of these troubling facts and try to persuade you not to consider their shocking lack of investigation of anyone else, not to consider John O'Keefe's injuries, not to consider the fact that multiple people left the residence and saw no body, not to consider the fact that the snowplow driver was specifically looking at 2:30 a.m. and there was nobody there, not to consider the fact that two people in the house were communicating at 2:22 a.m. but denied speaking to each other for 20.
I guess, like, what about the Ford Edge that the plow dryer? What about the Ford Edge? Was it that the plow dryer? I can't say this. What was it about the Ford Edge that made it memorable for the plow driver? Was it like park funny? Was it like in a weird spot? Or was it just like, oh, I like that car. That's a car that I own.
2 seconds, and not to consider the fact that one of their witnesses, who was
The guy just has really good memory.
also present at the home, was unusually curious at 2:27 a.m. about how long it would take for someone to die in the cold. Commonwealth will instead try to persuade you that Karen Reed supposedly had a motive to kill John O'Keefe because they were not getting along. You'll hear about their trip to Aruba over New Year's Eve and that Karen was upset that John had been flirting with another woman. And you will hear
Does she
that
have any history of violence?
Karen considered exploring her options after that trip, which led her to a get-together at one point with ATF federal agent Brian Higgins, although that never went anywhere. But you'll also hear that in January of 2022, after the Aruba trip, and not long before January 28th and 29th, John O'Keefe was making long-term plans with Karen.
First witness was the victim's brother. How did that go?
Including a family trip with her and the kids, and also another trip with Karen and another couple for months into the future. And you'll see video of how John and Karen were interacting on the night in question. You'll see for yourself how they looked at each other from the video at the waterfall that night. Nobody who saw them that night saw anything wrong. There was nothing wrong. I mean, like any couples, occasionally they would bicker or disagree. But you will hear zero evidence of any domestic violence in that home whatsoever. John never raised a hand in anger toward Karen, and Karen never raised a hand in anger toward John. That simply wasn't who they are. You will conclude the notion that Karen Reed chose the start of a snowstorm to suddenly become violent out of the blue for the first time and intentionally kill her boyfriend by hitting him with her car and leaving him there with a house full of people inside is patently ridiculous. You will also learn that what's not ridiculous is that someone, not Karen Reed, ambushed John O'Keefe. Somebody probably didn't mean to kill him, but somebody went too far. You'll learn that Trooper Proctor failed to investigate motives that other people had to harm John O'Keefe. You'll learn that Proctor failed to investigate anything or anyone who was in the Albert residence that night. You'll learn that he failed to investigate the antagonistic relationship between members of the Albert family and John O'Keefe. You'll learn that apparently nobody investigates the Albert family of Canton. Remember, on day one, Trooper Proctor was asked whether the homeowner, Brian Albert, would catch a lot of grief. And Trooper Proctor himself said it. Nope. Homeowner's a Boston cop, too. So, folks, the trial is now about to start, and that witnesses are about to start testifying.
No, this part
On behalf of Chief Albert, would catch a lot of grief. And Trooper Proctor himself said it. Nope. Homeowner's a Boston cop, too. So, folks, the trial is now about to start, and that witnesses are about to start testifying. On behalf of Karen Reed, I ask that you do two things during this trial. First, I ask that you pay attention to all of the evidence. The way trials work, the prosecution gets to present its case first. They conduct their direct examinations first. So we respectfully ask that you wait for us. We will get to cross-examine their witnesses, and you will find that cross-examination is the key that unlocks the truth. Wait for us. You'll be glad that you did. Second, I ask that you keep your eye on the ball. You have one job and one job
I saw the mom.
only to do during this trial, and that job, quite frankly, is not to solve this case. Your only job during this trial is to determine whether the Commonwealth, the prosecution, has proven to you each and every element of the crimes they have charged, beyond a reasonable doubt, to a moral.
Who were the witnesses that testified so far? Someone mentioned it was victim's brother. Maybe, did someone say victim's sister as well?
Certainty. The prosecution will fail to prove this case to a moral certainty. They will fail to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. You will reasonably doubt their case because their theory of the case does not make sense.
Oh, his brother, sister-in-law, and then officer.
You will reasonably doubt their case because Karen Reed was framed, and the evidence shows that, despite the fact that the police never ever investigated that angle of this case at all. Because the prosecution will not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
They talk a lot about Snow, one of the cops that showed up for the Albert's home first. They showed his dash cam footage.
To a moral certainty, we will stand before you again at the end of this trial and ask that you find Karen Reed not guilty.
Not everyone has a ring cam, though.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Giannetti.
Or maybe push you at sidebar?
Yes.
All right, they're approaching sidebar. So this is the brother. I'm guessing the dash cam footage is going to be over. What did the brother testify about? Is that the house? Oh, this is the house, right? Is that the wind? Hold on a second. This is maybe the back. Yeah, it looks like maybe like the back or the side of the house where we're like on top of the garage. Snow. Maybe sister-in-law, detective. Actually, hold on. I kind of want to see what he's talking about here. All right, y'all. What do y'all think so far about this case? What are we thinking? How many of you guys? 1 in chat if you've been following this case for a while. 2 in chat if you're just like, oh, I just got on this case. 3 in chat if you're just like, never heard of this case before. The brother testified of how nice Karen was to John and the kids. It was John's brother, Paul, and then Paul's wife, and then a cop today. Okay. Some 2s, 2, some 1s in here. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 before Christmas, 1. Some 2s. Can't wait for the cross-examination. How do you miss a body on that lawn? I think they framed her. Let me say this. The opening statements, while I thought the defense's was definitely way more, the presentation was like easier to listen to, and the state was kind of like, okay, there's a lot of people. I'm a little confused where you're at. I think they both did a pretty good job. The presentation, of course, is better with the defense because the defense was a lot way easier to follow along with. But you know what? I'm intrigued by both sides. I'm very intrigued by both sides. And especially when the defense was like, we have video of Karen Reed backing up into John O'Keefe's car. Okay. You can see the hubcap. You can see the wheels on there. So I don't know, I'm very intrigued. I can't wait to see all the evidence in this. This case has had a lot of publicity, okay, before the trial happened. A lot of crazy publicity. And then definitely, I would say to me, it blew up like in like December. I don't know. We're just hearing about like things left and right. Oh my God. A lot of craziness, maybe witness intimidation going on. We don't know. She homeschooled the kids during COVID. You heard a little bit of the case. You heard her talk. You found her to come across sincere, authentic. Backing up into a car is not the same as backing up into a human. Defense has all this evidence. It says it does, then they have a much stronger defense than I thought. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it could be, sometimes when the defense goes up there, they give their story and they're like, yeah, we have this. It shows X, Y, and Z. And then you're like, oh my God, how do they interpret it as X, Y, and Z? That's not what it shows on the video. So we'll see. We'll see. The courtroom got Wi-Fi just recently. Oh, really? Oh, that's good. Very nice. I feel like their camera quality is pretty good, and then the audio is pretty decent too. I do wish that they had microphones when the lawyers were talking, but I do see they have microphones for the witnesses. But I don't know, the camera looks pretty good. I'm going to just jump around a little bit.
Over to your brother's house. What would be sort of the general points or door that you would use to go inside the house?
So either the garage door or there's a side door right behind that bush.
So behind that bush, is there any sort of like walkway or anything like that over there?
Yeah, so there's a walkway that leads up to a couple of steps and then to the entryway.
Is that where the Ring doorbell would have been located, labeled as sort of the front door?
Yes.
And the garage area with the driveway that you were referencing in relation to this photograph, is not depicted in this photograph, is that fair to say?
Correct.
So with relation to this photograph, understanding that it's not depicted in it, where would that be?
The driveway would be to the right side of the house as we're viewing it from here.
And if I could turn, and whereabouts in relation to the house?
Oh, okay. Camera system right there.
So that would be the driveway, right side of the house, two garage doors, the upstairs window, and the Ring.
Yeah, I saw that they made that last minute change, right? The courtroom to be smaller. I didn't know the reason for it, though. I just thought maybe like have less people in the gallery or something. I wasn't sure.
Camera / floodlight combination.
Now, with respect to the garage, was there a particular way that your brother would have kept sort of the garage area?
Yeah, he had on the left side, he had a 1971 Ford LTD parked over that side. And he would typically park his car on the right side.
So the car that you were talking about before, that being the Chevy Traverse, is that correct?
Correct.
And so the floodlight combination with the camera, that you see that in this photograph, is that correct?
Yes.
You could just using the laser pointer direct the jury's attention to that?
Right under the window.
And as far as these particular Ring cameras,
Professor of Criminology at the University of the Internet with the PhD. True story. Nice.
driveway, garage one, and the front door, the sort of side entryway there. Who, if anyone, as far as you knew, had access to those particular cameras? How would they be accessed?
Most likely through the Ring app on your cell phone. I believe the only ones who had access to was my brother and Karen Reed.
And as far as your brother,
All right, I'll strike that, see if you can lay a foundation.
A few times he'd talk to me through the speaker. If I pulled up to the house and he wasn't home, and he would speak to me on it, but I'm not sure if I follow the entire question.
no, and that's exactly, so there were points where you would come to the house, correct, and he wasn't there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Believe
the
she had access
microphone's
to it,
too close to his mouth.
and he would sort of talk to you through the Ring application, is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yes.
Now, as far as Ms. Reed was, when you say you believe she had access to it, what leads you to believe?
I believe the kids had mentioned it before. Kaylee and Patrick, mostly Patrick.
All right, I'm going to strike that.
If you could describe to the jury sort of what part of the house we're looking at here, and what, if anything, in relation to the Ring that you observed here.
That is also the driveway from a different view. Call it the top of the driveway looking down onto the street. Right in this picture here, the Ring camera or the floodlight ring is not visible.
And the walkway that you were talking about that was behind the bush, do you see that in this photograph?
Yes.
Okay, if you could direct the jury's attention where that is. So if you follow that walkway sort of around to the bush, where does that lead you?
Right to the like breezeway
So for those of you guys who watched this earlier, this is John O'Keefe's house, right?
door.
Maybe they're trying to talk about Karen's car backing up into John's car, maybe.
If I may approach.
Yes.
Have you seen those on like a disc form? Is that correct?
I didn't have access.
Now,
Hey, Terry.
you want maybe approach
Yes.
discs? One labeled Meadow Ave ring videos. Oh, sorry.
So they've already been
Already
marked.
been marked.
All right. So the next, go right ahead.
Nope. Okay. So
Would please? Thank you.
161.
Vehicle, my brother's vehicle, and it looks like another SUV behind it. I don't know the two people.
If you could, just using the laser pointer before, if you could just direct the jury's attention to which vehicle you're talking about when you. So starting with Miss Reed's vehicle, where is it in this video that you observed?
I believe it's that one right there.
And your brother's vehicle,
Is back there.
and the vehicle you're referring to as your vehicle, where is it? And if you know, when about is this video depicting in relation to what you've described as the events of January 29th?
I mean, that would be in the morning, coming back from the hospital, mid-morning.
They even go on to say there was only a dusting of snow in John's body when they found him. I remember them saying, the state said that when they found John's body, it was like 6 inches of snow on top of him. But then the defense did say that when the snowplower, when he drove through the neighborhood at 2:30 a.m., if John's body was already out there, there would only be a dusting of snow. That's what I remembered.
And as far as the people within this video, do you recognize any of the people within?
Testimony was utterly boring, almost irrelevant. I'm like, we have pictures here. Are we going to get somewhere with this?
That'd be myself. I believe that behind me is
I guess radio check. What are they talking about right here?
be Kerry Roberts, because I believe that's Kerry Roberts' car. She drove my father back from the hospital to One Meadows.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just run the video.
Oh, that's my mother.
Yeah, this is a video from John's house. I guess how is it relevant here? What are we looking at? Are we looking at like his body height in comparison to Karen Reed's car? Are we looking at where his car normally parks when Karen Reed may have backed up into it, or the snow was on the witness stand today as well? They're trying to lay the foundation to discredit the ring video of her hitting John's car. I mean, because he did mention Karen Reed has access to the footage, but I mean, I don't see what she can do with the footage, you know, except for delete it.
Ms. Gilman, if you could just pause that briefly. Now, with respect to this video, do you recognize the vehicle that just pulled into the driveway here?
That looks like Karen Reed in the photo, in the video. I assume that's her father's car.
So this would have been the time that Ms. Reed, the defendant, arrived with her family from the hospital as well?
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just run that through. The next labeled video from Exhibit 6. Gentlemen, if I could ask you to pause there. Now, Mr. O'Keefe, with the last video, the two individuals sort of walking over to the house, do you recognize who those were?
Yeah, it appeared to be Karen Reed and her father.
And the individual who just got out of the same vehicle, do you recognize that person?
That appears to be Karen Reed's brother, Nathan.
Again, this particular day, January 29th, at your brother's house, that's the first time that you met him.
You don't know what their point was except the blizzard amount of snow. The brother talks about how nice Karen treated the kids, and John would get mad at certain things.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could just play this one again.
I mean, the judge did mention that he's like laying the foundation right now, so.
Now, as far as you mentioned earlier in testimony that after Ms. Reed arrived at the house, that your nephew Patrick came home as well.
Correct.
And do you see your nephew Patrick in this video up on screen now?
Yes.
So this would depict when he got dropped off, essentially.
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could
Also, did they cut it off or something? Because I don't see the timestamps or anything.
run that, please. You referenced earlier in your testimony, Ms. Reed had gathered some belongings and then had left with all of the vehicles that her family came with, correct?
Correct.
And do you recognize anyone depicted in this video number 176?
That's Karen Reed.
And what, if anything, do you observe in this video?
Oh, wait, is this after the murders? Or sorry, murders. Is this after the murder?
Her to have in her hand at this time.
Looks like some type of a bag.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just...
Are they trying to say that she was acting kind of sussy afterwards? Who's talking right now? Prosecution, direct examination of Paul O'Keefe, the victim's brother. Oh, let me erase my text.
Yes.
About how driveway, walkway, things of that nature. Shoveling was your...
I believe that is me standing there with a shovel.
Right there. You recognize
The father of Patrick's friend, but I'm not sure.
and with regard to
Returning from the hospital?
that particular day of January 29th, do you recall any law enforcement, whether they be PD or state police, coming to the house while you were there that day?
Not on the 29th, no.
During the course of clearing driveway out as far as snow or ice, what, if anything, did you observe as far as beyond just sort of snow and ice? Were there any sort of...
Okay, so this is like the day. They're just trying to show how bad the snow was, the blizzard was. It's crazy. All right, it's a lot of snow out there.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just play this video.
But also, where are the timestamps? Okay, lots of
And lastly, from
snow.
this exhibit, Ms. Gilman, if you...
Are there dates on there? Meadow Aves, ring, video, driveway. I don't see a date.
From Mr. O'Keefe, what's up on the screen right now is that essentially what the driveway looked like at the end of sort of the snow blowing and the shovel.
Yes.
Ms. Courthouse, we can have the lights back up.
All right, I'll probably re-listen to that in like 2 times speed later on.
May I press the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I think sister's testifying.
With the markers, recognize that?
Yes.
Detective
Just gonna find out
testifies. Wait, Boston. Boston time zone. Are they East Coast?
And Ms. Gilman, if you could just enlarge that a little.
Boston. Oh, no, I think Boston's the same time
What's up
zone
on
as
the
like
screen, Mr. O'Keefe? Is that what you have before you?
Chicago, right?
Yes.
And what are we looking at in this exhibit?
That's my brother.
And
One to the left.
Okay, so now this is a police department.
further off to the left, is that correct?
That's correct.
Before we get to that, just briefly, Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 13. Clerk, please enlarge. Thank you. Now, Officer Sheriff, do you recognize what's contained in this exhibit number 13?
Oh, Boston is East Coast? Okay.
It's a street.
Fair enough. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? We're dispatching arrived on scene.
Yes.
Absence the lighting condition, you mentioned it was dark when you arrived, correct?
All right, time check. What time is it for everyone right now?
That's correct.
So this is sometime after when the sun is...
Also, if they're going for a murder, should they go for like DWI as well for what, Karen Reed?
Correct.
If I could
No.
ask you to flip to the next exhibit number 14, if I could have that one. And again, officer, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as exhibit 14?
Yes.
And you were testifying earlier about sort of footprints in and around where Mr. O'Keefe was, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what's depicted on the screen in exhibit number 14, is that fair and accurate portrayal of the footprints that you were talking about?
Yes.
Oh my God, I could barely see that.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
Yes.
Oh, this is the house. This is the flagpole. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. If you could enlarge that just a little bit. Thank you so much. Now, from this photograph, first and foremost, do you recognize what's depicted up in exhibit 18 on the screen here?
Yes.
And this is 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That is correct.
And in regard to, you had mentioned some sort of landmarks off to the left side of the property, facing the property from the street, correct?
Yes.
And if you could, using that laser pointer that I placed up there before you, if you could direct the jury's attention to first those landmarks that you observed. I'm sorry, officer, if you could, while you're...
Oh, sorry.
If you could just describe what you're...
So
Oh my God.
there's the flagpole right there. There's a bush
Have you never testified on the stand before? Maybe you're just nervous.
there, and right there, I believe, is the fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant, flagpole. Okay.
So where in relation to this photograph, if you can see it here, was Mr. O'Keefe's body when you first got it?
It's right in this area right here.
Now, if I could turn back just a moment, when you indicated that you were coming up to the scene and you could see the three females sort of waving and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground, correct?
That is correct.
Well, how far away were you from them when you first observed them or first saw them?
About 20 feet or so.
And when you are driving down Fairview,
Do they have a picture of his body when it was first discovered? Probably not, right? Because people probably was like trying to move him around and like see if he's like still alive and stuff like that. But do we have a picture?
if you could describe to the jury, where is your direction?
I also I see there's footprints there, but
Sort of where are you directed as far as you're driving the
deep
vehicle? Are you
snow.
looking straight in front of you, or are you looking out the window? A
no pictures.
combination of both, or
I mean, it could make sense because maybe they were trying to just quickly attend to him and make sure if he was like alive, dead, or something like that.
I was looking for the house numbers, trying to find the house where it was, and there was, I saw the motor vehicle parked on the side of the road.
And that sort of leads to my next question, sir. So what did you see first? Did you see the vehicle parked in front of you, or did you see the people off to the side?
I saw the vehicle.
May I approach this retrieve now?
Yes.
Do you want this?
To the scene from the cruiser camera perspective.
I saw it once.
Okay. And Your Honor, I would seek to introduce in a minute as the next exhibit.
Oh, cruiser camera. Okay.
If you could just pause it right there, Mr. Officer Sarif, what's up on the screen? Is that what you recall as far as the sort of visibility and roadway conditions when you first left the church parking lot?
Yes.
And this is you sort of leaving from the church parking lot as you're going to 34th, correct?
Yes.
Now, there are a
I'm
number
gonna
of
take off the captions if that's okay.
different sort of things up on the screen. There's an indication as far as the speed that the vehicle is going at, correct?
Yes.
And where is that located, if you could, with the laser pointed at?
Sweet. Whoops, sorry.
Now, along sort of the bottom of that particular video, there's an indication as far as mic, brakes, lights, sign, correct?
Correct.
If those are activated, is there any sort of change in sort of the depiction there? Does it change sort of color or anything like that that you're aware of?
I don't know.
And the 683 on the bottom right corner, is that the cruiser that you were in that day?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, as far as sort of the top middle of this video, there's a date and a time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
As far as you're aware, that date and time that's up there, that's accurate to when this occurred, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're sort of looking in real time, correct?
Correct.
So, Ms. Gilman, if you could just let it run from this.
I think that's the house on the right. Is that it? No? Oh shit, all the houses look the same.
Ms. Gilman, I'm sorry, if you could stop this briefly. So, Officer Sarif, this road you're traversing at this point, this is Washington Street, is that correct?
That is correct.
And at some point, you're going to then travel through and then take a right onto Fairview, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you could, just for the jury's sake, as you approach Fairview and as you're taking that right turn, just direct their attention to the fact that that's when you're turning onto Fairview.
Sure.
Ms. Gilman, you can go ahead.
Oh. So this is already 6 a.m. Snowplower came through at what, 2:30 and 3:30, right? 2:30 and 3:30. I'm just trying to look at the snow where it's not plowed. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Also remember, snowplowers, they have like a height of advantage too. They're like really high up.
So this right here is Chapman Street.
I don't know. I mean,
So this right here is Chapman Street.
because I'm looking at when I'm looking at the snow, right? I'm looking at the cars and then how many inches of snow goes up to the tire for a lot of these vehicles that we're passing. And how much the snow goes up to like a mailbox or something.
This right here is Fairview.
Okay, we're turning.
Coming through this positive once. So, officer, similar to as the turn onto Fairview, at some point, if you observe the point at which you believe you sort of illuminated your spotlight on the side of the cruiser, if you could just speak up and draw the jury's attention to that as well.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if you could continue.
I don't know. It's like sometimes the snow looks like it's like a lot of snow, and sometimes it looks like it's Like here's another car right here, right? And you can see the tires. He needs better windshield wipers. Yeah.
Right about now, I believe I put the spotlight on.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could just sort of run it from this point to about the 4-minute mark, and then I'd ask you.
Right there.
Wait, what? Is that the house? Flagpole?
Sarah, this is, you were testifying earlier as far as the vehicle in front of you that you observed first, and then sort of the parties off to your left as far as the 3 females waving, and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground, correct?
That is correct.
Where?
First, and then sort of the parties off to your left as far as the 3 females waving, and Mr. O'Keefe
Parties are on the left. 2 females are waving. I don't fucking see any of that.
on the ground, correct?
That is correct.
And if you could, just using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to number 1, where the vehicle is that you observed in front of you, and then number 2, where you observed the 3 females and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground.
Like,
So there's
right?
the vehicle right there, and the females are right there.
What? I can't see. Yeah, the windshield's in the way. Wait, and that's his body on the ground right there too?
Okay, so now, Ms. Gilman, if you wouldn't mind just running this straight through until about 7.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see them now. Okay, they're like bent over. They're waving. Okay. You could barely see. It's like this right here. You could barely see. I could try to zoom it in, but I don't think we're gonna really see shit because here, I'll zoom this one in. They're like right there. Like right here.
The females are right there.
Okay, so now, Ms. Gilman,
Here, I'm gonna slow it down. I'll mute it. I hit the play button. Is it too slow? It might be too slow. Hello? Playback speed 0.5. I don't know. I can't really see much. Yeah, I can't really. I don't know. You like kind of. I don't know. I can't really see shit. Snowplow cam? No, this is police officer's car. The guy who's like testifying right now. Is that Karen Reed on the right? Hey Rex, how are you doing today? Miss Rex Murphy, hello.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Prosecuting to- I have no further questions to this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Will there be a cross-exam? Because this may be a good time to stop if there is.
There will be a cross-examination.
Okay. So, jurors, we're going to stop for the day. I have to caution you those same 3 cautions.
I watched her record on the big screen as a potato quality camera. Okay, why would she go back to the exact spot if she did not know she had done it? She knew. She was mad, very drunk. When she sobered a bit, she realized she'd done messed up. I would say explanation for that could be like, that's the last place that she left him. That's why she went back to check on him. I don't know. The owner of the house who threw the party never came out to see what's going on. Question mark. I don't know. Did he have an excuse for that? Did he say he was like super drunk? He was wasted? Yeah, what an innocent surprise curious person would do. I see that evidence too. Guilty wipers. She went back because she was connected with the other 2 on the screen. The sister-in-law of the homeowner, and the sister lives there. Yeah, she dropped him off there.
Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or
What I'm curious about is I guess the state opening mentioned that before she went to the sister's house, what's her name again? Jennifer McCabe. Before she went to Jennifer McCabe's house, and then they set out to go find John O'Keefe's body, they said that she made like a weird route, taking 30 minutes. And it looked like she was on her way towards Fairview, but then she changed her mind. But I feel like she can easily go up there in the stand and just be like, hey, like I was thinking about maybe driving over there, but then I was like, hey, you know what? Let me just pick up Jennifer McCabe and see what's up. I don't know. You guys think she's going to go up there and testify?
anything about this case, please
got it,
disregard
right?
it and let us know. And just to remind you, tomorrow will be a half day. We'll go from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock with the meeting.
Wait, tomorrow's a half day? Why is tomorrow a half day? Hold on a second. You said tomorrow's a half day.
Research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And just to remind you, tomorrow will be a half day. We'll go from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock with the mid-morning.
She wouldn't go back there. She was trying to get away with hitting him there. But there are so many people who commit murders and they unfortunately go back to the crime scene, right? It does happen. Look at Mr. Koberger, right? Accused of murdering 4 students. And then they're like, oh, well, he went back there again. And he went back there at 9 a.m. What? But I don't know. I wonder what the defense is going to say about that. They're going to say that he never went back there at 9 a.m.
Very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
All eyes, please. Juries, close your notebooks and
Tuesdays and Thursdays are half days. Why? Is there another case going on, or does the judge have some sort of like mentorship or conference, or what the fuck is going on? Tuesdays and Thursdays are half days. Jesus, if I was on a member of this jury, I'd be like, could we just hurry up and let's just do it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid. I wonder what their explanation is for that. All right, guys. Well, that was the opening statement for Karen retrial. I'm going to go back and listen to the witness testimonies, and I'll let you guys know if anything interesting comes out of that. But this trial is slated for maybe 6 to 7 weeks. It's going to be kind of lengthy, and I look forward to hearing from the witnesses. There's a lot of people that are connected to this. It gets really confusing because we have a giant family, and then we have another giant family, and then we have friends and all the people that were there, and friends of friends, and nieces and nephews who are friends with each other, and all that good stuff. I don't know. It's a lot of people that are involved. It's going to be hard to keep track of everyone, but I just keep referring to this, this initial court TV family tree, just to kind of keep track of like who's who. But there's definitely more people as well. But I think this is like the general overview. Like we have these people, and then we have Karen Reed, and then we have John O'Keefe. I think those are like the main people that we're just going to be focusing on. But it's going to be a lot of people. And then also, I look forward to the battle of the experts in regards to what exactly did Jennifer McCabe do that Google search when she was Googling, how long does it take for a body to freeze outside or something like that? Shoot, I don't have it up here. What was it again? Like, how long does it take to die of hypothermia? Something like that. So the battle of the experts would be really interesting to see who's going to be more convincing. He was still stargazing. Oh, he was sun gazing. Ah, gotcha. Sun gazing. Ah, yes, totally makes sense. All right, y'all. Well, that's it for today. I mean, that's all I got. I was going to. Oh, you know what? It's 3:00 now. I did want to listen to Chad Daybell's trial really quickly. Lori Daybell's son goes up there and testify. His name is Colby Ryan. I did want to listen to that actually, so I'm going to listen to that, and I think it's about an hour long. Feel free to stick if you guys want to. That's also another trial that's going on right now. And luckily, the judge has upgraded, I think, the audio and the video, because the first day when they were doing the opening statements, oh my God, I don't know what was going on with their microphone, and it was just a hot mess. But it's a lot better now. I think they probably just tweaked some things. Sometimes it's hard to get audio correctly the first time because audio sucks. But I did want to listen to Colby Ryan. What's wrong with the court TV graphic? It serves its purpose. Colby testifies. Okay, this is the one I was watching. Yeah,
and listen to who is going to be the witness, Colby Ryan. This is a son of Lori Vallow.
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. This trial is so... the text messages between Chad and Lori, and then what the family members say about Chad, friends, what they say about Lori. Like, oh, these are just two people that are just, I can't believe one of the two most cringiest people in the world just like met each other. Ugh.
He was one who was looking for brother and sister. Let's go in for his testimony.
All right. All right, we're back on the record on case CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell.
See that audio? So much better now. Bye, Corgi. Have a good one. I'll see you later. Enjoy your dinner. So we're going to listen to Colby Ryan's testimony. He is Lori Vallow's adult child, the oldest. And he's going to talk about how he was raised by Charles Vallow, which is Lori's fourth husband, right? Charles Vallow was her fourth husband. And I think Colby's biological dad was Lori's third husband, but he was mainly raised by Charles.
Daybell, we just completed the lunch recess, and the state continues with its case in chief. The state may call its next witness.
The state calls Colby Ryan.
And listen to who is going to be the witness, Colby's testimony.
Oh, my Lord. Sorry. I don't know what happened.
Thank you. Idaho versus Chad on the court's YouTube channel and open for public as a statutorily definite with the definition here. He would not be subject to that. So disregard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ryan.
Good afternoon.
Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes. Colby Ryan, R-Y-A-N.
Mr. Ryan, who is your mother?
Lori Vallow.
Poor Colby.
How many siblings do you have? 4. Okay, can you tell us their names?
Cole, Zach, Tylee, and JJ.
And Cole and Zach, what is your specific relationship or relation to them?
They're my stepbrothers.
Who was their father?
Charles Vallow.
Your Honor, may I publish? Mr. Ryan, do you recognize that individual?
Yes.
Who is that? What is your specific relation to Tylee?
She's my half sister on my mom's side.
So you share a mother.
Mhm.
I feel so bad for
Your
him
Honor,
having
may I
Lori
publish
Vallow as her
Exhibit 4?
mom.
Mr. Ryan, do you recognize that individual?
Yes.
And if you need a drink of water, I don't know if there's tissues up there.
Yeah, I'm good.
Who is that?
That is my brother JJ.
I think he's in like his early
And
or
what is
mid
your
30s now, right?
specific relation to JJ?
He is my adopted brother.
Do you recall when JJ was adopted?
Yes.
Do you know who Charles Vallow was?
Yes.
Who was he?
He was my stepfather.
And when you say stepfather, how was he your stepfather?
He married my mom.
How long was he married to your mom?
Over 10 years.
All right. And what was your relationship like with Mr. Vallow?
He was my dad. It was good.
So, fair to say you were close with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you recall when Mr. Vallow passed away?
Yes.
Or Charles Vallow? If I say Charles, we understand who we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Do you recall when he passed away?
Yes.
When was that?
July 11th, 2019.
How did you hear about him passing away?
My mom called me and told me that he had a heart attack.
That's crazy. Why would you say a lie like that? That will obviously later on, like they can find out that, oh, my dad did not have a heart attack. Why? Doesn't seem very smart, Lori.
And do you remember about what time of day that was?
Between like 1 and 3 o'clock, something in the afternoon.
In the afternoon?
Mhm.
Did you have any reason to not believe or that that's how he passed away?
No.
Did you have any occasion to go over and to your mother's house that day?
Yes.
And where was that house located?
In Gilbert, Arizona.
Do you know approximately what time you went over?
And I got off at work at 7, so around 7:30, 7:45.
What happened? What was the first thing you saw when you got there?
Tylee opened the door and hugged me, and she was crying. And then I saw my Uncle Alex sitting on the couch with a bandage around his head. And then I saw my mom in the backyard, and that was it.
Did you go into that?
And the day that their dad got murdered, she like just nonchalantly took the kids to like Burger King. She went to Burger King, took them there, and then like just came back and acted like nothing happened while her brother was there dealing with the mass.
The house?
Yes.
Did you see your brother JJ there?
No.
Did you speak with Alex Cox at all that night?
Yes.
How did that conversation go? What did he say to you?
Objection, hearsay.
Statement of a co-conspirator, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Tell us about the conversation with Alex Cox. Well, and before we do that, what was your relation to Alex Cox?
He was my uncle.
And you testified you saw him with something white wrapped around his head?
Yes.
Did you speak to him at all that night?
I asked him what was on his head, and he said that Charles had hit him in the head with a bat and that he had shot him in self-defense.
And is that how you learned how your stepdad died?
Yes.
Did he tell you anything else about that altercation?
No.
And did you ever have any other occasion to speak to him about that altercation?
No.
You said you saw your mother that night? And what was her demeanor?
Calm. Unrattled.
How would that make you feel? Your mother tells you, oh, he died only the tip.
Closing arguments. That's
Call you young Chad Daybell is up to him.
How Charles had actually died.
Yes.
How did that conversation go?
She told me there was a fight and ran through it very quickly. And it was just in shock. I can't remember exactly what she said, but she just basically gave me a very quick version of the story.
Did she tell you why she had lied to you earlier?
No.
Do you remember if you asked her?
I don't remember.
Did you ever speak with Lori Vallow about Charles Vallow's life insurance policy?
Yes.
Oh no.
When was, do you know if that happened multiple times?
I know she'd mentioned it growing up. She talked to us about what would happen if either one of them, something happened to them, what would happen. I think it was a few weeks later that she brought up that she was not going to receive any of the money from Charles.
Now let's just take a quick step back. When you say a few weeks later, what do you mean a few weeks later?
After Charles was murdered.
Okay. And
I think the money instead of went to his sister, right? To Kay.
she told you then that she was not going to receive that money.
Yes.
From that conversation, was it your understanding that she had been expecting to receive that money?
Yes.
And okay.
That's the money she was going to use to run away with her lover boy.
When Charles was
Chad
alive,
Daybell.
did you ever have occasion to speak with Lori Vallow about her and Charles's finances?
Yes.
Was that something that came up often?
Yes.
About how often, to the best of your recollection?
I would say maybe monthly.
One of the sources of income. They were trying to get money everywhere, okay?
Once a month.
And what was the general nature of those conversations?
From what I understood, Charles would work and then receive a bigger amount of money, and then it would kind of run out, and then they'd make another bigger amount, and then it would run out. So it's kind of the nature of the conversation would be that they were running low on money, something to that degree.
Okay. And was that a common theme then?
Mm.
Just to be clear, it was a common theme that they were running out of money.
Yes.
Do you know who Tylee Ryan's father was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Joseph Ryan.
And I know that you and Joseph Ryan have the same last name.
Yes.
Was he your biological father?
No.
Okay. But
Oh,
did
he's
you
not.
take his last name?
Yes.
And do you know if Mr. Ryan is alive or deceased?
He's deceased.
And do you recall when that happened?
Summer of 2018, I think.
Wait, what
Something
happened to
around
him?
that time.
You don't remember the exact date?
No.
And were you aware if Tylee Ryan received Social Security benefits after Joe Ryan passed away?
Yes.
How did you learn that?
My mom told me that she would be receiving benefits.
And do you know if she received that monthly?
Yes.
Did you ever receive money from Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
How would that usually happen?
Venmo. She would Venmo me.
Would you ever ask her for some money?
I did, yes.
Hey,
And
Sean.
about how often would that happen?
Maybe I can recall asking Tylee specifically a couple times. I would mostly ask my mom, and Tylee would be the middleman between those transactions. So I'd ask my mom, and she would tell Tylee to send the money.
Speaking of that, to your knowledge, did Lori Vallow ever send you money by sending it to Tylee, who would then Venmo it to you?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
I would ask my mom, and then she said, okay, Tylee will send it over to you.
Do you recall the last time you saw Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
When was that?
It's August 30th.
And where was that?
It was outside of my work in the parking lot.
Is that in Arizona?
It was in Mesa, Arizona, outside of a gym.
And what was the nature of that visit?
My mom was very vague and said that they were leaving. She brought Tylee and JJ, and Tylee was crying and didn't say anything really. And I hugged JJ, and my mom said that they'd be back in a few weeks to visit.
Aw.
Did she tell you where she was going?
No.
Do you recall if you asked?
I did ask initially.
But she wouldn't tell you?
No.
All right, let's pause the testimony so we can have an opportunity.
I asked her to send money. And I think we had talked earlier that day a little bit. I didn't talk to her directly, but I had heard her voice, and they said that they were on a trip. And I think I'd asked her for money. I think that's what it was.
Okay. And did she respond? Do you recall?
Yes.
What did she respond?
I don't remember what she said exactly. I remember her last text that she said, which is, I love you and I love the girls.
And you said you heard her voice earlier that day. And how did you hear her voice?
She was in the background of my conversation with my mom.
And did your mom tell you where they were?
She said they're at Yellowstone Park.
Okay. After Charles's death, about Tylee's Social Security money.
Yes.
What was the nature of that conversation?
So if I recall, she said that Tylee's money was not going to be everybody's money since she.
Can I have some foundation as to what time, date, place this discussion took place?
So the foundation objection, Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, I'll ask a few more questions.
Thank you.
Do you recall approximately when that conversation took place?
I don't.
Okay. Was it?
Oh, he wrote a book too. It says wrote a book about experience titled "The God Over Odds." It was published in April 2022.
In person?
I don't recall. I think it was on the phone, maybe.
But it was after Charles's death.
Yes.
And just to be clear, you don't recall the exact date.
No, I don't remember.
What was the nature of that conversation about Tylee's money?
Judge again, foundation.
Overruled. I knew that she wasn't going to be receiving the money, so she said, we're going to supplement some Tylee's money for now, and I'm going to go work. That was what she said. And that was basically the nature, but she said, we're going to start using Tylee's money to make it through. And I think that they...
Oh, was this after Tylee was murdered?
I don't know if they were receiving anything for JJ, but that was the nature of the conversation.
Okay. So you don't recall if she mentioned JJ receiving Social Security?
I don't remember, but I know about it. I just don't remember if she said that.
Okay. And do you recall if she said anything about her receiving Social Security benefits after Charles died?
No.
Okay. September or August 30th of 2019?
Yes.
Were you contacted by the Gilbert police on November 27th of 2019?
Yes.
What was the purpose of that contact?
They came to our door looking for Tylee and I think JJ as well. I specifically remember them asking about Tylee first.
Yeah. And what did you tell them?
Have you guys ever heard the phone call between Lori Vallow and her sister? It's like so heartbreaking. I feel so bad for her sister. She was trying to figure out where the kids were, and Lori was just like, la, 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 like in her own fucking land.
I said I didn't know where they were.
Do you recall if you told them about the last time you had seen them?
I think so. I think so.
Thanks, Kiki. Like the stream.
At that time,
thanks.
Had you been concerned about...
All right, we need to take a break, but you don't want to...
Why are there so many breaks here?
A normal way and was always avoided. Her dialect and her text, the way she spoke wasn't matching up. And I had texted her for her birthday and just things of that nature. Just wasn't getting calls, wasn't getting
So they were texting pretending to be her.
any contact in a normal way and was always avoided. So I thought maybe she was upset with me. But
Who do you think was doing the texting pretending to be Tylee? You think it was Chad Daybell or Lori Vallow? Actually, it could have been Alex Cox too, right?
I just didn't want to pressure her because I know she'd been through a lot.
And so you mentioned text messages. Was there a change in those messages?
Yes.
How so?
Just little things like if you capitalize the letter I in periods and emojis, just things like that. Things just didn't sound right, and it just felt off when I was receiving those texts.
Do you recall the last time you spoke with her on the phone?
The last time I directly spoke with Tylee was on the 30th with JJ on FaceTime.
Wait, was ChatGPT a thing back then?
So the same day that I saw them.
So you FaceTimed with them later that day?
Yes.
Not yet, right? It was like after pandemic, I think.
And then you never spoke with her again on the phone? But going back to those text messages, did you keep receiving text messages throughout September of 2019?
Yes.
And are those the messages that you felt were different?
Yes.
Okay. Did you respond to those messages?
Yes.
After the beginning of September, did you continue to receive money from Tylee's Venmo?
I think so.
Do you recall how often?
I think maybe a couple more times. So maybe 2 or 3.
And did you receive any more money from Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How much was
And how
Lori
did she send
sending?
that?
So she started sending money after I had not heard from her since that day. She started sending money on Cash App. I think she made a separate account and just tried to send money and it kept denying it because it was a new account. I think it was all through Cash App at that point at just random times.
Okay. And was it in response to you asking for money or was it just sent? Do you recall?
It was just sent.
Yeah. After Charles Vallow died, did you ever speak with your mom about her getting married again?
Yes.
And do you remember when that conversation was?
Oh, no.
Maybe a few weeks after.
After he passed away?
After he was gone, yes.
And what did she tell you about that?
It wasn't really a conversation. She just said a one-off thing like, I'll be married again soon. And I disregarded her and told her that I think that's crazy, or maybe she's talking about in the next life. It wasn't a real conversation. It was just a comment she made, and I completely dismissed what she said.
So she didn't give you any details about who she was marrying?
No.
When she was getting married?
No.
Other than soon?
Just soon, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, after her husband was murdered, she was so excited to murder this next guy.
Did your mom ever mention the name Chad Daybell to you?
I don't think so. No, I know
And she was so excited she couldn't even contain it within herself that she had to fucking tell her son. Oh my God.
she was becoming spiritual, if you want to call it that, for a long time. But she doesn't. I only knew Melanie. I didn't know anybody else that she was spending a ton of time with.
And when you say Melanie, which Melanie?
Melanie Gibb.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you contact your mother after November 27th?
Wait, I think Melanie Gibbs, she already testified, right? Lori's niece. I heard that Brandon Boudreaux, I heard that he testified. apparently they were trying to make a hit at him. Possibly.
When you were contacted by the Gilbert police.
I immediately contacted her after they left.
And what did you say to her?
I asked her what is going on. Why are the cops asking me where Tylee and JJ are? And she said, she asked me, like, what did they ask? And I said, they asked for Tylee and JJ. And I said, what's going on? And she just proceeded to say, I'll take care of it. You know, don't worry about anything. And she's like, that's it. Like, I got it.
At that point, did you know where your mother was?
No.
So she had never told you where she was?
No. We speculated based off of the Yellowstone thing, but I didn't have an idea where she actually was.
And so you didn't know she was in Rexburg, Idaho?
No.
And she never told you that?
No.
Oh, this is when she moved.
Did you try to contact your mother on Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Did she respond to you?
No.
Up next, Michael Ayala joining me from...
Be okay. Don't worry about me. I've got Jesus on my side. Blah, blah, blah. But basically just saying, it's okay. I've got things handled.
You think Lori still thinks she has Jesus on her side?
Money from you mentioned a number of times that you were
Oh, I think this is John Pryor now. Maybe cross-examination.
receiving money from Tylee and Lori. Is that right?
Mm.
And 2018, 2019.
Yes.
Sound about right?
Yeah.
This is Chad's attorney.
4, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Financially, is there a reason why they were sending you money?
We were just a young family and I just needed help and I was asking my mom for help.
You were a young family with children of your own?
Yes.
Okay. Just difficulty supporting yourself?
Yeah.
So your sister Tylee was helping out?
Sometimes, yeah.
And that was consistent
Aww.
with her character, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Very caring person.
Very.
Very kind person.
Yep.
She was, in many ways, more of a mother figure to JJ than Lori was. Would you agree with that?
I think she was his big sister.
Right. Very caring
Does anyone know? Is John Pryor, is he also a Mormon? Just curious.
of JJ.
Just
Very,
curious.
very protective of JJ. Would you agree with that?
She loved him. Yeah.
And she understood him better than almost anybody, correct?
Sure.
He had tremendous challenges as a young autistic, 7-year-old autistic child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of all your siblings, you would probably say that Tylee was probably the kindest, the gentlest, and the most understanding of JJ. Would that be fair?
Sure.
Okay. Now,
Where's John going with this?
you mentioned that Lori called you to let you know that Charles had died.
Yes.
She didn't tell you that Alex gunned her down in the house, right?
No.
She lied to you.
Yes.
That it was a heart attack.
Yes.
Yes, make Lori look like the bad one. Lori's a crazy, manipulative goddess. Chad was under her spell.
Oh, you're Lori's son, natural son, right?
Yes.
So Lori Vallow lied to her son the first time, saying that Charles died of a heart attack, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of lying in a lot of places.
And Lori lied a lot to you, right?
Other people too. Yeah.
But Lori lied a lot to you.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
And then you mentioned the name Melanie Gibb.
Mm-hmm.
Was Melanie Gibb in on this lying to you as well about covering things up?
I didn't speak to Melanie Gibb.
Okay. But Lori and Melanie were the best of friends, right?
You could say that.
Yeah. And Lori met Melanie because Melanie was teaching classes about religion and about various religious topics, and Lori gained an interest in that, and that's how that friendship started, correct?
I'm not exactly sure. She was at our Christmas party one time, and then she was there as her friend, so I didn't know what their exact connection was.
When was that Christmas party?
2018.
Okay. And the two of them were together, and it was abundantly clear that the two of them were very, very close friends, right?
Sure.
Okay. At the time that your mother notified you, you were at work, is that right?
Yes.
So did you get that message while you were actually working, or was it over a break, or how did that transpire?
So I was in the middle of my workday, and she called me, and then I went over there after work.
And where were you working at that time?
At Anytime Fitness.
Okay. And so you took a break. Do you need to take a break?
No, you're good.
Okay. You took a break, and your mother called you or texted you and said there was a heart attack.
Yes.
No mention of self-defense.
Nope.
No mention that Alex shot Charles in self-defense, right?
No.
Nope.
She was clearly lying to her son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the fight that occurred between Charles and Alex, Tylee was there, and she was implicated in that, correct?
Yes.
And she was present for that fight and that entire altercation, from what you understand, correct?
Objection. States facts, not in evidence.
Overruled. Correct?
From what I understand, yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that your father isn't Joseph Ryan, correct?
No.
But are you aware that your mother in 2018 received a sizable life insurance policy from Joseph Ryan?
I am now, yes.
You are now, like right now?
I mean, I heard that later on, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're aware that financially, Lori Vallow had a significant amount of money as of middle or late of 2018, correct?
Yes.
Okay. during this time that there was discussion with Charles about financing, was it Charles Vallow who was the primary financer of the family's expenses?
Yes.
Your mother chose not to work.
She worked, I think, in the beginning, and then I think he just took over. I'm not sure. I was a child.
Okay, so when there was financial issues, it was your mother putting this all on Charles to provide for the family. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Charles put he was making
you
like
already previously
500K a
mentioned
year
that
on
you
like
communicate-
was it like 500K a year and he put it on like Ty Lee's like was he buying a car for someone? I feel like I vaguely remember that. There was a point where Lori Vallow's lawyer was trying to make Chad look really bad, and he's like, he was throwing Chad underneath the bus. It was like, why would anyone go from Charles Vallow to Chad Daybell or something? Like Chad, this loser, writes books, makes no money, had to be carried by his wife, Tammy, who was taking care of like what 4 or 5 kids. She was the one who was working and all that. Like, oh my god, dude, I remember that. I knew Lori. Lori must have been so pissed to have her lawyer go up there and just talk shit about Chad, her man.
With Tylee at least like once a month. Is that fair, or was it more frequently than that?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
You communicated with Tylee at least once a month. Was that fair?
Growing up, or
well, in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, and the manner that you would communicate was by text message.
Primarily.
Okay. And how often would you communicate with JJ?
I mean, it really depends. Tylee and I would see them more often, so I didn't have much time for them not being around.
Okay.
So before that, it wasn't once a month. It was a lot more frequent. They lived in the same place, and I would go see them.
Okay. And when you communicated with Tylee, or excuse me, when you communicated with JJ, it was always Tylee there, right? Usually?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting hungry.
Not Lori.
She would be there too.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you saw Tylee on August 30th in Mesa, Arizona. That was the last time you saw them. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you had mentioned that Tylee was obviously upset.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any prior information that Tylee just did not want to go to Idaho?
No, because I didn't know she was going to Idaho.
Okay. So she was obviously upset about something.
Yeah.
And it was the day that they were packing up to leave to go to Idaho. Is that right?
Between October 26, 2018 and June 9, 2020, Chad allegedly endorsed religious beliefs to justify the homicides of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ.
Yes.
Oof.
And prior to that time, there was no indication that Tylee was upset about anything else. Is that right?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay, that's fair. Do you remember that? And from August 30th, you then had a FaceTime call with both Tylee and JJ later that afternoon, later that evening.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about what time that was?
Probably when I got home, so anywhere between 7 to 8 p.m.
Okay, and you don't know where they were at that point, though, right?
They were back at the house.
In Gilbert?
Yes.
Okay. They hadn't left, but they were preparing to leave.
They were leaving in the morning, from what I understood.
Was Tylee still upset about the fact that she was leaving for Idaho?
Not on the phone call, no.
Okay.
Chad claimed Tammy was possessed by a spirit named Viola. Max saw Tammy's life insurance before death. Oh, God. Are his children going to go up? I heard that his children might testify for their dad. I don't know. That's what I heard. Welcome back.
Now on the
Yeah, we covered the opening statements earlier for the Karen Reed trial.
back in late November, you had then had an occasion to talk with your mother. Is that right? After the Gilbert police spoke with you?
Yes.
And again, your mother lied to you again.
Yes.
Was Melanie Gibb there?
Where?
On the phone? Any indication that Melanie Gibb was there listening in on the phone call?
No.
You don't know whether she was or not, or you just don't know?
I have no idea if she was there.
Okay. Now, your mother's a strong personality, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
She's not someone that people can tell her what to do. Would you agree with that?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So you think she could be influenced very easily,
Unless.
right?
That's a big gap between not influential and influential.
Okay, but you would agree that your mother is one to speak her opinion when she has an opinion about a subject, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Did you have an occasion to ever interact or observe the way your mother talks to her friends? Let's say Melanie Gibb.
Tammy Daybell was later determined to die from asphyxiation. Chad and Lori married 2 weeks after Tammy's death. I know there was some weirdness going on with her cause of death, because apparently there was a, what do you call that person again? Like a coroner, the person that does the autopsy, went up and testified, and she initially said it was like from, what did she say it was from initially? Like, what did she say, natural causes or something else? But then when she was informed that Chad Daybell was also being investigated for the 2 kids, I think like she like re-looked at it and was like, oh, this is for asphyxiation.
She interacts with someone like Melanie Gibb?
Yes.
And that sort of interaction between them, your mother was a wallflower, or did she tend to speak her opinion?
Was it natural causes? It was like, because I think they tried to say that like, oh, Tammy had a bunch of like health issues, blah blah blah. You know, she was like taking medication for this, for that. I forgot what the initial cause of death was, but I know it was like later changed.
When she spoke with her good friend Melanie Gibb.
You need to find Wildflower.
Wallflower, someone very passive who wouldn't argue, someone who would just accept the way things are.
Oh, a wildflower.
She did not like confrontation.
Okay.
She avoided it. So take that for what it is. I don't know.
Okay, so if getting in a discussion with Melanie Gibb, she would avoid confrontation. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay. Did she ever tell you in late November, after the police called you, that JJ and Tylee were with Melanie Gibb?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Judge, I think that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
All right, Michael, at first.
I think that was it, right? Yeah, that was it. That was pretty short. All right, that's Lori Vallow's oldest son, and he had to go up there and testify about his 2 younger siblings, talk about his mom, his shitty mom. I don't know. I feel so bad for him. I know that he was completely torn up when he testified for his mom's trial. Was it already been a year since Lori Vallow's trial? It's been a year, right? Yeah, he was like super upset when he went up there and testified, as he should be. I don't know. We'll see what's going on with the Chad Daybell. I've been tuning in here and there, reading the recaps, but we have 2 trials that I'm just going to keep track of. Chad Daybell. I feel like Chad Daybell, he's going to testify. He's got to testify. Same thing with Karen Reed. I'm sure she's going to testify too. I do look forward to that if they do. But other than that, I mean, we don't really have anything else much going on. I think maybe in the summertime, things are going to start ramping up. We have a lot of, we have Alec Baldwin stuff coming up, Sarah Boone stuff coming up, and then maybe Alexi Treviso that doesn't get pushed. A lot of stuff is just happening in the summertime. So it's just kind of like spring season. We just kind of just chilling right now, aside from the 2 cases going on, but it's just been kind of quiet. However, they finally, I mentioned this in the beginning of the stream, they finally released the autopsy report for Suzanne Morphew's case, and I did a true crime story time about her. Check it out on the YouTube channel somewhere. But she's a woman that went missing on Mother's Day. And listen, there's a lot of weird things happening with her case. They arrested her husband. He was supposed to go to trial, and then shit happened because the state attorney was just not very good. I know there's some weird things going on with the state attorney. They didn't file a lot of I think they just didn't do paperwork correctly. They initially just fucked up the case. It was so bad to the point where the judge was like, okay, you know what? You guys can't try him. No, it was so bad to the point where the judge didn't allow a lot of expert witnesses to come and testify. And the state was like, well, if you're not going to let us, have our state witnesses go up there and testify, then our case is just going to be fucked. And that's why they had to dismiss the charges against him. However, they could recharge him again, but I think their court system or whatever's going on is so fucked right now. I don't know what's going on over there, but hopefully they're able to find her killer. I mean, a lot of people are pointing the fingers at the husband. What's interesting is that they accuse, this is before Suzanne Morphew's body was found. They accused the husband of essentially shooting her with a tranquilizer and essentially killing her that way. The autopsy report that came out, I think today or yesterday, it was found that there was tranquilizers in her system and some other stuff. So that kind of goes with the theory of her husband being the one that murdered her, because he found out that she was cheating on him. She had a relationship, and, he probably didn't want her to be with anyone else. Crazy stuff. Yeah, the doorman stuff, that's coming in the summertime as well. Now, the interesting thing with that is they threw out his, apparently his confession. When he was under medical hold or he was getting treatment or something like that, he had said some things and the judge threw out that confession. But, the Chad Dorman stuff, that's pretty wild too. I think what I also look forward to, I do look forward to the Baldwin trial. Even though we already had the Hannah Reid trial, I do look forward to the Baldwin trial, although I don't know. I think it's gonna be an interesting one. I think Baldwin still maintains that he didn't pull the trigger, even though the FBI did their own. They did their what's it called? They were like fucking around with the gun. Well, not fucking around with the gun, but they were testing the gun out, and they deemed that Baldwin must have pulled the trigger. Otherwise, there would have been no way for the ammo to eject out of the gun. Chad still has 2 witnesses who saw what happened. Who were the 2 witnesses? Chad Daybell or Chad Dorman? Oh, Chad Dorman. Yes, yes, because his stepdaughter was there and also his wife. Yeah, oof. But I feel so bad especially if the wife has to go up there and testify. Fuck, that's like hard. That's super hard. I don't know how she would be able to go up there and testify and not like just fall apart on the stand. I don't know. It's hard, especially like for cross examination, all that. I feel so bad for her. Just having like your 3 youngest children just gone just like that. Also, Nicolay Mew, we covered the Apple River stabbing case. His sentencing is going to be in July. And then Donna Adelson, beginning of the fall season. So that's what we got for the future. And I'm going to go eat because I'm starving. But if you guys missed it earlier, we covered the Karen Reed opening statements. I like loosely followed the case since December. But it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a very interesting 6 to 7 weeks. I look forward to watching the trial. This week, though, I am going to be gone. I'm going to go to Mexico, but we'll be back again next week. Or, I don't know if I'm going to try to stream. Am I going to try to stream in Mexico? I don't think so. The service might be kind of shoddy or something. But if anything else happens anything interesting happens in Karen Reed stuff, maybe I'll cover it when I come back from Mexico, maybe on the weekend or something. Or I'll just see you guys in a week from now. But if y'all missed it, I'll have the stream chopped up. We'll put out the videos. And other than that, I hope you guys, I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate listening to your guys' thoughts on the cases and all that. And I will see you guys the next time I stream. Bye, Lisette. Bye, Rhiannon. Bye, Chopper. Bye. That's why I love it here. Corey's afraid to say fuck. I try not to cuss, though, because YouTube initially... I'm not used to having to censor myself so much when I stream. On Twitch, it's kind of just like, doesn't really matter. No one really cares. But on YouTube, if they pick up too many cuss words, they start messing with their monetization a little bit. So I try to be good here. Just once in a while, It's a little bit, it's kind of fun to drop the F words in here and there. All right, but I hope you guys have a good one. Take care. If you guys haven't already, feel free to join the Discord. Join the Discord. Have your notifications on. And I will see y'all the next time we stream. Have a good one. Bye. See you, taxi.